Oh,
Everything's
boy.
on fire. It's fucked up.
It's all fucked up.
Everything is burning.
This is probably because of that Billie Eilish song. Jesus, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't
Because
know.
we
I'm
used
wondering
Escape
if we
the Fate for like 3 or 4 weeks.
wonder if we need to reschedule.
Or it's because of a call for an uprising. Maybe he's putting a hex on us.
Carol. Is Carol hurting us?
Carol.
I don't know if we're doing videos or not tomorrow, but I do have a call for an uprising video. He's mad at McDonald's this time, though.
What did McDonald's do?
You know how they're joining into the fray of plant-based meats,
Y'all are
so to
live,
speak.
by the way.
Hi guys,
wait,
we're
wait,
live.
Wait, they're doing plant-based meats?
Yeah, they had
Burger King is,
a
McDonald's.
PLT, a plant lettuce tomato. Anyway, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Let Suris know we're back.
All right. Yeah, I'd let Suris know we're back. It's up to you guys if you guys want to reschedule or if you want to do it again. I know Pig, Hunter, and Rags is up for still doing this. So it's up to you guys if you were still. Apparently, it is a YouTube thing because Pig Puncher is also having some. His streaming went down, so it's kind of
stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cool to reschedule. We've had a lot of weirdness. If Suris wants to, we can regroup and come back with a more specific question, maybe.
Yeah, since that was really. It's Billy's. So yeah, sorry. Yeah,
I wasn't
probably
certain. I just kind of went. I just like, okay, this is my problem with it, but maybe nobody else has this problem, and it's just exclusive to me. So,
all right.
I don't know.
I think Billy's in cahoots with the Wojcicki. That's what I think. He's trying to get this stream taken down. He knows we're going to hit 100,000 subs soon. He don't want to have to shake that ass. I see past you, Billy.
I'm also joining the PragerU lawsuit.
I think Billy, I think if you wore a purple corset, if I sent it to you, that would undo the bad juju y'all have on your account right now. You'd have to wear a purple corset and sing and dance to the thong song. I think that would be the good ritual that would undo all of the bad juju you got.
Kind of unironically, but ironically, I might actually use it because my stepsister likes to do. No,
all right.
Just likes to put up awful pictures, and I'm gonna start mocking her pictures.
Can everybody hear everybody else clearly and without?
Yes.
Yeah.
No robots. No robots. Good.
No robots.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. I'm cool with regrouping and having a specific question and coming back because I just went, hey, well, this is my issue, but it may not be anybody else's, and so.
I'm actually ready to tackle that and then get into my opening. So I am prepared to I am prepared to work off of that. And bear in mind, I will want to say, I respect you, Mel. You know I do. I don't think I've ever actually given you disrespect in the course of the last year and a half we've known each other.
No, not at all.
So if I get heated in my response, it is not me attempting to be a dick to you. That is simply the fact that I'm a huge Marvel fan and I'm a huge DC fan. So when I talk about this is one of those things that I can get very impassioned about. The only thing that you're going to get me impassioned about more and get me possibly angrier about is if somebody tries to tell me that Garrosh did nothing wrong in World of Warcraft. I'll probably eviscerate the person who says that.
Wow.
So,
I am not that level of nerd, so that's okay, Suris.
Fair enough. You're dealing with somebody who grew up in a comic shop. So this is the back and forth debate environment where nerd culture is concerned. This is my arena. I am sorry.
Well, that's okay. I think as far as entertainment, it is a matter of perception, and we can all take from art different things. So that's kind of what I feel like we're doing with here. So it's all right. We're going to have different perspectives.
So that said, are we live?
We hope so.
We hope so. Okay.
We're
now
Billy, do your song dance.
Okay, cool. So we are
Get
live.
Juju off.
So some of the things that I'm saying are gonna get into somewhat spoiler territory for a show that me and Raz and Aaron are watching right now. So allow me to close my door real quick.
Okay.
Because this could cause problems. All right.
See, that's super cool. I appreciate that.
All right. Much better. So, I want to first tackle the issue of the killing joke very briefly. One of the statements that you said in regards to the killing joke was something along the lines of, you don't do that to somebody, the crippling somebody to get to somebody else, that whole deal. Am I strawmanning you on that? I want to be certain that I am or not.
A little bit. Keep in mind that the perspective is how DC has historically treated women. That's kind of like what my perspective is that using a woman in almost every single way is as a tool, and not so much as a person outside of, I'm going to use this woman for X, Y, and Z. And it's always usually of a sexual nature. It's usually of a sexual nature, and it's just almost all the time.
It's not, and that's one of the I'm denying that, not because I'm going to come without facts, but the reason I wanted to bring that up is the issue that it seems that you have held is that, narratively speaking, obviously DC is control of the narrative, but narratively speaking, a villain did a bad thing, regardless of what that bad thing is, regardless of who it is done to. He did a horrible thing, but this is the Joker, somebody who in many continuities is responsible for the genocide of the human race. I feel like having Joker go to a length is not necessarily a problem. There are issues within Joker, but for instance, the domestic abuse angle with Joker is portrayed as a horrible person. There are only a few instances in DC Comics where Joker is portrayed as a positive force, something to aspire to. One instance is the White Knight Chronicles. In the White Knight series, Joker actually, and it's Harley Quinn that helps him with this specifically, manages to reform, and he becomes who is known as Jack Napier, and Jack Napier ends up actually taking the entire Gotham police force, reforming it and turning it into a force for good over the course of this series. It's one of the few times Joker's actually been portrayed as a good person and not an outright evil person. So any argument that stems from the Joker did a horrible thing to X person, male, female, child, or otherwise, by the way, he has killed children. Jason Todd exists. So the argument that it's always women who are used as the framing device is also fallacious, because Jason Todd has been used as a framing device, and the person in the fridge, as it were. I know that DC is responsible for the woman in the fridge trope, because when Kyle Rayner was Green Lantern, that actually was birthed there. Here's my question for you. Is there a single female DC character that isn't overtly sexualized and or in the process of having any kind of power isn't overtly sexualized, and Power Girl, Hot Girl, Mira, Black Canary,
kind of power? Hold on, wait. Any kind of power associated with some kind of trauma or crazy mental illness attached to it?
Yes, Mira actually. Her husband is Aquaman. Unlike Aquaman, who has the power to control microbes and fish in the water, she is actually a hydromancer. There is only one instance, and it was in a separate continuity, the Flashpoint continuity, where she has any trauma associated, and her powers do not derive from it. None of it derived from trauma, psychosis, or anything. She is just a very powerful hydromancer. Supergirl is another example. In her story, in her effort to actually ascend from Supergirl, who is the little cousin of Kal-El, to actually be her own person when she ultimately becomes Power Girl, that story is not one of sexualization or even mental trauma, unless we want to make the argument that Superman's is, but even then I wouldn't. Black Canary is another character who I would say does not have issues with mental trauma. In fact, actually, if we're going to talk about Black Canary, one of my favorite instances of that character happens in the Injustice story when Harley Quinn and Black Canary are fighting, and Harley Quinn, throughout their fight, recognizes that Black Canary is actually pregnant, and it is at that moment that the fight is stopped, and they end up becoming best friends instead, because she says that she actually has a child whom she had with Joker, but Joker does not know, and she has sent her away so that Joker could not use her to abuse Harley Quinn anymore. So she ends up empathizing very much with Black Canary, the fact that she is attempting to fight while also being an expecting mother. That's not something that I know that Marvel's done ever.
I have a question for you. Okay, so go back to, it's not Mira, but Supergirl. So you're familiar with the Supergirl series, the TV show?
I'm not talking about the series. I'm talking about the comics.
Okay, well, the series is still representation of DC, in my opinion. So it's not just the comics, but it's also right. So you got the comics, you got the TV, you got the video games, you got the movies. The TV show Supergirl. That's what I'm primarily familiar with. I hadn't read the Supergirl comics, but the TV show, in the first episode, Supergirl relies on a dude to tell her how to dress like a superhero. So, I mean, you usually...
But does she rely on him because he is male, or does she rely on him because he is present?
It doesn't matter at this point, because every single time I watch, it really doesn't, because you're going about, when you go through all of the narrative here with the Harley Quinn getting pregnant by Joker, you're talking about the awful things that Joker has done. The thing is, DC has still framed this narrative to kind of go along with this horrible treatment of women. That hasn't changed. And so they still treat women like garbage. It doesn't matter that Joker is a villain. It's still one of the driving plot points that you have in some of the more popular stories.
Except Joker is an equal opportunity. We'll go ahead and call him what he is. He's an equal opportunity.
Even at the end of the Killing Joke, the original writer wanted to kill off Joker, but DC wouldn't allow that. The original writer of the Killing Joke.
Your issue DC seems to be then with capitalism. Your issue then is with a free market that makes money off of a character. That's ultimately where that comes down.
Well, the thing is it's important to go ahead and have these types of conversations, because, to be quite frank, they're missing an entire niche of individuals. I'm the one who bought the Injustice game, and I was angry by the time I was done with it. There's an entire section of people that are completely isolated and separated from this particular type of genre. And that's not something that's new. That's something that's regularly been in.
So are you familiar with the story of Oracle, the thing that leads from the events of the Killing Joke?
Yeah, she gets confined to a chair. She's no longer sexualized, because apparently it's not sexy to be in a wheelchair any longer.
Wait. She's no longer... She literally has an entire section with Dick Grayson afterwards, and even gets married afterwards, and is still sexualized, just not to the same degree as when she was able to wear a latex superhero costume. But the character is still sexualized.
Having a romantic interest and being involved in a committed relationship that's relatively healthy is not the same thing as being overtly sexualized. I think
being shot in the back is not overtly sexualized either.
But stripped down and having naked pictures taken of you for the sole purpose of degrading you to your father is pretty horrible.
Mm-hmm. And did that also happen to Commissioner Gordon? Crime. Did that not also happen to Commissioner Gordon? He was stripped down and paraded through the carnival.
Well, what I'm saying is, but this is a key thing that happens throughout with just about every major character, particularly with the ones when you talk about the more popular series like Batman.
Mm-hmm. So my point is, your question, we are derailing from your question. Your question was, is there a single DC hero who does not derive their power from trauma or is overtly sexualized? My examples, one of them was Mira. Mira does not derive her hydromancy from any type of trauma. By the way, Batman derives his entire thing from trauma. Literally the most popular male superhero there is derives everything he has from trauma. John Jones derives everything he has from trauma. Had he not been the last Martian.
I can talk about the gross misrepresentation of mental illness as well with the new Joker film that's coming out. People who are bullied in incels, that go and get guns and kill people. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we can. My point is that my point is not that this does or doesn't happen. My point is that this does not just happen to the female heroes in these instances. Also, our conversation is about which one is the better entertainment, not necessarily which one has the best representation. But the reason I brought up Justice League,
I don't know which. I didn't know. There was no particular question for me. I don't find it inherently entertaining because of the fact there's always some kind of horribleness that's happening. The gross misrepresentation of mental illness, also as well as the gross misrepresentation of women in DC, as well as the fact that majority of them have to be crazy in order to have power or overtly sexualized, that sort of thing.
Except, okay, but so does Hawk Girl gain her powers from trauma? Mira does not gain her powers from trauma. Does Wonder Woman gain her powers from trauma? Does Big Barda gain her powers from trauma?
My question, none of these are characters that gained their stuff from... But Wonder Woman is overtly sexualized regularly, even all the way through the TV series. This film that just came out which TV series? Time.
Which TV series did you see? Because you haven't seen Justice League, and she doesn't.
I haven't seen the current one. No.
Okay, so this is not a current one. This is 20 years old. For fun background stuff, and again, you are my friend, so I'm going to provide you with some entertainment that I think you will really enjoy. Please go watch the Justice League TV show. It is the first cartoon, not counting Super Friends. Super Friends is not a good show. That's a horrible show. Justice League brings in the team in Justice League consists of Batman, Superman, Hawkgirl, The Flash, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman, and J'onn J'onzz, the Martian Manhunter. So this is one of the most representative teams. There are 2 females on the team. Neither female is sexualized throughout the show. In fact, actually, characters who attempt to sexualize Wonder Woman in that show get punched by Wonder Woman. They do not last long. Characters that make an active attempt at doing so.
Well, this is good progress for DC.
This was 20 years ago. This was 20 years ago, Mel. This is old. Ago?
This is old. Then this is good progress. It's something I missed entirely. So that's nice. That makes me feel better.
Like the Teen Titans show doesn't sexualize Raven and Starfire in its show at all. The only times that they even get mildly close is when Beast Boy attempts to flirt with Raven or Robin flirts with Starfire, but even that is simply a character pointing out that they have an active interest in them. So, anywho, I don't want to stick the entire conversation on representation, because representation, you got a lot of time to talk, Mel. Representation does not automatically, by its nature, make a medium better or more entertaining. Is it good? Yes, this is one of the reasons I'm suggesting Justice League. It has one of the most representative casts, and after its first 2 seasons, it brings in the entire, for the most part, it's missing Plastic Man, but the entire extended DC roster, male, female, etc. Anyone gets brought in after the first 2 seasons, but the first 2 seasons do have a lot of stuff that I would heavily recommend watching. So that said, I do not want to focus the conversation strictly on representation, because that's not what the conversation is about. That is a facet of the conversation. That is a facet of which media is better, which one is better to each of us in individual ways. But it seems to me, from what I can tell, that most of the media you have consumed, where superhero comics is concerned, was the older shows. So like you mentioned Super Friends before. I don't know how much of it that you watched. I personally never found it to be terribly entertaining as a good narrative show. But it seems to me that what you have seen has been mostly the recent Netflix stuff and the recent movies, which means that there's an entire library of entertainment that you have yet to access. And I would highly recommend going through and accessing. The DC Extended Universe, in fact, actually, Justice League canonically is attached to the Batman animated series. So if you did enjoy the Batman animated series, that Batman is the one present in Justice League. If it's just going to be the representation argument, please watch more media that includes the DC characters, because DC is also not the people that you should be blaming for what happens in Injustice, because you know the studio that created Injustice, right?
Yeah, I have the thing right here.
Yes, it's NetherRealm Studio. Do you know the franchise that NetherRealm Studio is most associated with?
No.
They are most associated with Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And Mortal Kombat, that series itself, only up until the most recent release, has had very overly sexualized characters. Now, to be fair, in Mortal Kombat's defense, they did make an effort with many, not all, but many of their characters to justify if a character was like that. For instance, the character of Melina, she actually dresses herself that way because she has self-confidence issues, and that's strictly a thing that she has to do. I'm not getting into that argument, but the company that made Injustice, NetherRealm Studios, already did that. That's just a thing that their company has done. That is primarily an on them issue more so than a DC one. Just like how you can take a lot of things that have happened with the Marvel Studio movies and lump them on Disney because they are the ones ultimately funding all of those projects now. So, point on media, if we're just talking about which one is better, what categories are we looking at? If we're looking at representation, my argument is that DC has representation. Does it do it as well as Marvel Comics? I don't know. Personally, I think that it does it just as well if you were to take their extended universes into account. If you only take their movies into account, Marvel beats DC in every area, not just in representation. DC does not perform well on film. It's done it like 2 or 3 times, and every other time has been an abysmal mockery of what a comic book movie should be. Joel Schumacher did not do a good job handling Batman. The Batman movies themselves, Christopher Nolan managed to do a good job twice and then kind of floundered the last time. The story behind that's actually kind of interesting. And if we're looking at their attempt at the DC cinematic universe, they failed abysmally because Man of Steel didn't understand who Superman was. Batman versus Superman didn't understand who Batman was. Everybody's been trying to redo the Dark Knight story and not doing a terribly good job of it. Frank Miller also has been failing a lot when it comes to the Batman character, and he's the guy that wrote the freaking Dark Knight. So I can grant that the cinematic universe in any instance fails in comparison to Marvel's outing. So the argument then goes to the companies as a whole and what they've done in all media. One of the points you brought up before was the romanticization of the Joker and Harley Quinn, their thing. So the first issue that I'd have is that, one, we have, again, a villain who is being a domestic abuser and a psychological abuser. If you look at the story of Mad Love, how he actually convinced Harley to be a friend or to be with him was by being what's called a vulnerable narcissist. Vulnerable narcissists, instead of playing the I'm better than everybody card, they play the victim card, and in so doing convince people to operate under them as opposed to everyone else. Joker played that card in Mad Love with Harley, and that's what ultimately led to Harvey being with him in a desperate attempt to try to reform him, try to understand him, and it ended up working about as well as you would expect when you're working with, well, a narcissist. However, within the course of that show, the DC animated universe has continued sporadically. At the end of Justice League, the last scene that we actually see with Joker and Harley Quinn is another domestic abuse scene. She is used by him while he is using the Royal Flush Gang in an effort to cause some drama with the DC heroes. Throughout the course of that entire event, Joker is shown not fantasizing. Joker is shown taking Ace, one of the members of the Royal Flush team, and like gloating over her, saying how this is the person that's going to help him defeat all the DC heroes. And ultimately, Harley Quinn ends up approaching him about that and going, well, why are you doing this? Why are you gloating over this other person instead of me, the person who you're dating? You should be doing that to me. Joker responds by attempting to manipulate her and then physically abusing her once more. This is the last time we see Harley Quinn in the DC animated universe until the recent movie, Batman and Harley Quinn. What do we see in that movie? Well, Harley Quinn is now single. She is no longer with Joker. She's actually had a relationship at some point in the timeline with Poison Ivy. She has actually completely left him, sees him as a bum, doesn't want anything to do with him. This is canonically the same Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series. This is not a new medium that suddenly has a different Harley with a different backstory. This is the same one who went through everything with the Joker. This character ultimately realized she was in a domestically abusive situation and left. From what I have seen, the romanticization of the Joker and Harley Quinn dynamic is done mostly by fans and less by DC. So when it comes to...
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Okay, so there was a campaign that was going on around the fact that they were going to kill off Poison Ivy, and people were trying to stop that because of there was like some kind of brutal attack where they were going to kill her off and sever that relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
Seems no different than what happened with Jason Todd. Are you familiar with the Jason Todd incident in DC history?
Mm-mm.
In the Jason Todd incident, Jason Todd is Batman's second Joker. Unlike Dick Grayson, who is a very likable person, but when he ultimately became Nightwing, he got fed up with a lot of the stuff that happened with Bruce because he realized that being with Bruce is sometimes not the most healthy 24/7 job. So he ultimately goes and becomes Nightwing. Jason Todd is a vagrant who Bruce takes in. He ends up adopting. Pre-crisis, post-crisis, we have questions about that. But anyway, he ends up adopting Jason Todd, and Jason Todd, because unlike Dick Grayson, Jason Todd came from a criminal background. He literally found him attempting to like boost the hubcaps off of the Batmobile. That is one of those situations where you have to say that the kid has some spunk, but probably not best idea to mess with Batman as a 10-year-old. He trains Jason Todd. Jason Todd becomes his Robin, but he is an asshole. Did you watch the Joel Schumacher Batman films, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you remember the way that Robin acted in that, where he was a petulant ass.
Right.
That was Jason Todd. That Robin, okay. I'm convinced that Robin came because at the time DC's comics had Jason Todd, so Dick Grayson was written that way in the movie because Joel Schumacher doesn't understand comic books. So Jason Todd was not liked by fans.
So how is that like Poison Ivy? I mean, that's just like they're completely different characters and represented
yes, they are
completely differently.
But there's a reason I'm getting to that. So with the Jason Todd thing, DC ended up actually having a campaign and a poll where they sent letters out to fans and asked them to say whether or not they wanted Jason Todd to be killed. And the fans, it was like a 52% to a 48% vote that they didn't like Jason Todd. They wanted him gone, not just written out of the story, but murdered. So the idea of fans coming together to campaign or decide whether or not a character should live or die, this is not new territory for DC. The mechanics may be different in each situation, but this has been a thing that's happened to other characters before.
Yeah, but they wanted him to die in this case. The
fans wanted him to die.
Right, the fans didn't want Poison Ivy to die. And they're completely different characters. So it's like
they are different characters, but we're dealing with the same company.
Yeah, we're dealing with the same company, but again, they're completely different characters, different genders, had completely different paths, and were treated completely differently. So it's just
your question to me. It's not. Your question to me was how I feel about a campaign that involved the fans involving a character's death. My answer is that I don't know
your thoughts about it. Okay. That's fine.
My thoughts basically boil down to if you have a reason to kill a character in the story, male or female, and you want to kill that character and you can justify the death of that character, do so. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a situation that Marvel Comics did when they killed the Wasp through cannibalization.
Okay. So here's where I'm at with this. Essentially what it comes down to for me. All right. Clearly I need to go watch some TV shows from 20 years ago because there's better representation there that I haven't seen. But it's good that DC is moving a bit better, particularly with the Wonder Woman series. I did, with the film, I did enjoy the film. I thought that was on spot. I felt some of the pushback, particularly from some of the fans, the fanboys, who were worried about a woman directing it. There was a lot of issues that had popped up. She hadn't actually directed a superhero film, but was an Academy Award-winning director for a war film, The Hurt Locker.
And of course, the Wonder Woman movie ended up being framed around like a war film, so that worked anyway. And if I can interject for one thing, this is actually a thing we can probably both agree on. Superhero movies should never have been a genre. Because what Marvel did with their movies to make their movies good was by not making superhero movies. They made movies that had superheroes. What type of movie is Ant-Man? It's a heist movie. Why is it good? Because it's a heist movie. Does it have superheroes? Yes. That's it. The only like superhero movies that exist within the Marvel universe for the most part are the Avengers, like the actual coming together to fight the big supervillain. Those are the superhero movies. The other movies are just good movies that contain superheroes.
Right. I do tend to agree with that, with the way that Marvel has handled those particular films, particularly also when you look at that comparing to like Wonder Woman, when you look at Patty Jenkins and what they asked her, what was it that you were trying to do with this film? She said, I just wanted to make a film where a person wanted to be really good at their job. Just really good at, like, if they're going to be a superhero, they just really want to go and do this thing. It wasn't like a gender-based kind of thing. It was about, I just want them to go do the right thing and try to persist in continuing that path regardless of what happens, to just, be the best version of themselves that they could be. And that's kind of how it comes out. But yeah, it's like, I think we can agree on that. I just have a really hard time. And I haven't decided, like with the upcoming Joker film, I haven't decided if I'm going to see it in the theater or not. Largely due because I think it's kind of socially sensitive, particularly with the fact that they go the route that he was bullied and he has a bit of incel tendencies. Women reject him, so he just decides to go ahead and take up a gun and start attacking people, which
and that whole thing
is a problem.
That whole thing confuses me as well, because if you look at the story if you look at the different origins for the Joker, we've had a few definitive origins. There's the Jack Napier origin that famously happened in the first Batman cinematic movie we got, where Michael Keaton was Batman, the Tim Burton one. That's actually where the name ultimately came down from later when they did the White Knight series with Joker, where he was Jack Napier. We've got that origin for him. Where he's a gangster. We've got another gangster origin for Joker in the Mask of Phantasm movie, if you've ever had an opportunity to see that.
Yes, I think I've seen it. It's been a while.
I need to see it again. It's been about 20 years, but I remember it being a very good film. We've got the Killing Joke version of the Joker, where he was Red Hood. He was basically blackmailed into being Red Hood and ended up just kind of falling into the vat of acid and coming up, and that's, some fans have issues with that, because how did the vat of acid stain your face white and red, and how did it magically give you gloves? And there's issues with it, narrative issues, but it's at least fun. There's also another one that happened recently where instead of Joker being pushed into being the Red Hood, he ultimately became the leader of what was called the Red Hood Gang. And the story's kind of the same, but instead of being pushed into being the Red Hood Gang operates as a series of anonymous people who are all being blackmailed by the leader of the Red Hood Gang or somebody else in the Red Hood Gang. So nobody knows who they actually have a beef with within the gang. They're all anonymous. Joker is Red Hood 1, and other people are later versions of the Red Hood. One of Batman's, not Batman's uncle, one of Batman's friends, who is actually the Riddler's uncle, dies because he finds himself within the Red Hood Gang, and in so doing, gets killed in the crossfire of a thing. And that creates a really interesting play on the Red Hood story with Joker. But all of those are interesting stories that don't say this person had a mental illness, therefore they broke and now they're shooting people.
I know.
There's another one, not another Joker origin. I forget which author it is, but there's one Batman author. I think it was Grant Thompson. No. And it wasn't Frank Miller either. But there's one Batman author who, when asked if the Joker was insane, he flat out denied it and said, no, the Joker is what I would call super sane. He is smart enough to know what he needs to do to get in anybody's head, and he plays off the insanity so that he doesn't go to jail. He instead goes to Arkham. But he is not himself insane. He is using it as a tool.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know. It's weird. I guess the biggest beef that I really have is that I see so much potential there to kind of grow with, stronger female characters and stuff like that after, seeing what Marvel can do. I know DC has it there, but to be fair, DC, Warner Brothers, doesn't have the money that Disney has. They don't.
True, but this is why their animated universes typically have performed better than their cinematic ones. Honestly, after watching the Justice League show, there's 5 seasons in it. It may take you a little while to get through it. I would definitely say watch Batman and Harley Quinn. Aside from the fact that there's an instance where there's a romance between her and Dick Grayson, but in that one, it's actually Harley sexualizing Dick Grayson, not the other way around. That ends up being a little different, a little interesting. She basically does the whole, you're all grown up now. You want to know where Poison Ivy is. Well, that's fine. But you have to understand that I can't get a job. And so you're going to have to do something for me. And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, there isn't exactly a market for X-costume supervillains. And she literally holds up all of her papers of all of the jobs that have denied her. And then just goes, even though I've got all these degrees, let's see here. This person says I can't. This person says I can't. And here's an agency that's willing to take me. They want me to do a tasteful photo shoot in this. Yeah, no, that's not happening. They play with the idea that the character's sexualized, but they actually put it in the direction where the character's like, no, I'm fucking fed up with this. None of you are doing this to me. She won't accept any of those types of jobs. So it's a really interesting play on that whole trope.
I'll have to check that out. I think the thing that I would really like to see more is when Wonder Woman came out, I was just absolutely excited and happy when I sat through that. I left that film feeling like the time that, the first time I saw Christopher Reeve's Superman, that first time feels amazing. I felt that way on the first Iron Man, and I felt that way again, except more profoundly with the Wonder Woman film. I'm like, it would be awesome if we had more characters like that. And I think the biggest issue that I have with DC is that the market is there. They can make characters like this and tap into this and or even kind of take, what you were mentioning about Harley Quinn, shift it in a different direction.
Take that stereotype and play with it. You guys are comic book writers.
Exactly. Do something with that, because that they're missing out on a huge demographic of women.
And the weird thing about that is that DC in the past has done that. In fact, actually, Wonder Woman in the Justice League show, when she sees women putting on copious amounts of makeup and stuff like that, she's just like, why are you doing that to impress guys around you? Why wouldn't you just use your natural beauty? And the women around her are the ones who don't get it. But Wonder Woman does, because in that story, she came from the Isle of the Mascara, or Themyscira. She came from an Isle of Amazons. The idea, being sexualized, is not something she's comfortable with. So when anybody tries to do that in the show, doesn't last long. She's just like, no, this is not a thing on my island. You stop it.
No, I mean, I understand that, and our society is vastly different, and it's shifting more towards a positive direction. I hope. So it's sometimes we have setbacks, but it's I feel that that's an entire market. With the Black Widow film, I'm so excited about that coming out. I would love, you see Princess Shuri's in my background here. I would love for Princess Shuri just to have her own film, because honest to God, she's amazing.
I'll be honest, a DC character who I think that they should have a film for, and I would love to see them do things with, would be Zatanna. If you've ever been introduced to that character.
I'm familiar with Zatanna. Yeah, I'm familiar with Zatanna.
I would love to see, because the things you can do just cinematically with a character who's based off of magic and illusion, well, I don't want to spoil any of the recent Marvel movies, but we have a fantastic character who's based off of those things recently. But the things you could do with that character would be good, and especially since DC has a reliance on Batman as a character, and Zatanna is very linked to the Batman mythos. So it's not like they have the excuse of, this character isn't close enough to our star character that we can start a franchise with her. Well, no, you can. she was introduced to most people in the Batman animated series. And she actually like in Justice League, she goes out of her way to embarrass Batman. So like there's things you can do with that character. She's also another character whose abilities are not based on trauma. There's also Katma Tui. She's a lesser known character, but she's a Green Lantern, so hers are based entirely on willpower. Just listing off DC characters I know from various teams in history.
It's fine. We should probably wrap it up. I know we're getting up to where we're gonna get into Rags thing, but this has been fun. I've learned some things today. It's always a good conversation.
I was about to say.
We learn things, you know, and that's great. So I've learned
honestly,
things.
And honestly, if as you're going through, I will say this: Justice League season 1 is a little bland. Season 2 is where it gets like very, very good narratively. If as you're watching that, you want to just like randomly tweet at me the same way you did with the Bunny Donnie Darko thing, I still remember that.
You know, I should go find my old tweets on Injustice when I was playing that game. I tweeted the makers as it was coming out and progressively went from, wow, this is cool to, oh my God, I'm so pissed off at you guys. It went from serious to just that to progressively worse. And they stopped responding after a while. So
my issues with Injustice begin and end with the fact that it's a very contrived story that, by the way, fun fact, is told better in the Justice League TV show. I'm not kidding. That story. So that
I gotta say,
story has been told earlier.
I will run people over with my motorcycle. I'm not even sad. I will do it in that game.
All right, so I did put in the call where you can call in to the show real quick. We got to about 8:30, and then we're gonna have Rags and Pig Puncher on. So if anybody wants to call in, go ahead.
Oh, beans! Well, this was fun, Suris.
It was. We haven't had a chat in a while. And again, I mentioned before, I'm sorry if I get passionate, and I'm sorry that I got passionate. I know that it could have been seen as a little aggressive.
Misconstrued. It's fine. If we were talking about plasma and resonance and nanoparticles and you wanted to argue about my research, I would have probably gotten very impassioned about that. So it's fine.
Fair enough. It would have been, I would have also been, most of the conversation for me would have boiled down to, well, I didn't know about that. Also, I see Smitty in the chat has said, are Mel and Suris in the same room? No, we just happen to have the exact same aesthetic.
See, we can hold hands. We're holding hands right now. Hold my hand, Suris.
It's like
other side.
There we go.
There we go. See, we're holding hands. We're just right there. Wonder Twin powers activate. What form are we gonna be? I'll be form of a redhead scientist. Look, it worked.
So you mean you're going to be, if you change it to redhead detective, you mean you're just going to be Barbara Gordon?
Oh, I have cosplayed as Barbara Gordon. I have cosplayed as her. It's a wonderful thing to have a black cat suit. It translates across several characters.
You know, it's funny. There is a character in DC, while we're waiting for the call-ins, there's a character in DC Comics named Spider-Girl.
Huh. Yes, there is, isn't there? That's been a while. I hadn't thought of it.
It's weird.
Oh,
trying to think of. I will say this: if there's
Black Widow right here.
Oh, David asked me to become a stuffed doll. 1 second, I can actually do that. That's a trick I can perform.
You can be a stuffed doll. Okay,
I can
cool.
I can turn into a stuffed doll. Which character was that? Hold on, I didn't see.
This is Black Widow. I can actually I've cosplayed as Black Widow before. So yeah,
nice.
It's kind of hard to see her. Yeah. This is from the Disney and Infinity series. Disney Infinite, I think.
All right, I'm gonna do the trick where I transform into a stuffed doll. Hold on.
Okay. Abracadabra. There we go.
Holy shit!
I love it.
I've done
That worked great, man. Wow. Are you talking with telepathy because your mouth isn't moving?
That's
well,
witchcraft.
You see, my voice, my mouth is not well animated. The production company was they're very sparse.
This is very early Tomb
animation.
Raider.
Like I do this. That's how I talk, so the mouth never has to move.
So a whole red versus blue thing.
Yeah.
All right.
This is very early Tomb Raider animation from, is it EA?
We
don't have
I think we're getting a call in. Hold on.
Excellent.
Awesome.
How can I,
call in.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to put it in.
You should be able to merge, Frankie.
It didn't let me merge.
Merge.
Are you going
Frankie.
too fast? Merge into the lane.
Not let me merge. All right, whoever that was, try it again. Let me see if I can get to merge.
Guys, I could probably call Kent Hovind.
Oh God, no. Actually, Mel, while they're trying to merge, I was just reminded of something. I was on a live stream the other day, and somebody. We've been trying to do that. Somebody argued to me that Steven Universe was a kid show for kids and only tackled kids things, and I'm just like, you mean the cartoon show that successfully tackled the issues with child grooming and mental illness and successfully like deals with like issues about fascism, and you're saying that that's the kids show for kids? Okay, sure. Why not? I agree with you.
Oh my goodness. No, I think I have Kent Hovind's direct line to his cell phone because he texted me back on Sunday when I tried to call an Oral Audacity. Can you call back later? And I called him back while we were on the show. It was great. It was so fun. If you hadn't checked that out, check it. Is that a Pokemon?
Oh man, I'm trying to figure out how to merge the call. It's not.
Yes, that is a Vaporeon.
I have random nerd stuff around me that I just don't want to set up like a Chow from Sonic Adventure.
Here. I'll put my Wonder Woman right here. Hold on. Here she is.
Excellent. Hold on. I have to grab a voiceover program. There we go.
Thanks, sir.
Sorry,
I'm doing about 3 things at once.
It's Discord.
Okay. Here we go. Yeah, this is my Tonner doll. I have his phone number here.
You know what's funny? We managed to have a conversation about Marvel versus DC that began with female representation, and we never once got into the Captain Marvel debacle, and I find that astounding.
I loved Captain Marvel. I thought it was great. I mean, it could have been better. Yeah.
My problems with the movie is that I think the movie should not have been set before Iron Man. I think that movie should have been set after Thor, because there are certain things that happen within the story that actually like fundamentally retcon things Nick Fury has said. In the Avengers, Nick Fury mentions that it was Thor coming down that let them know that extraterrestrials were real and that they needed to start preparing for cosmic threats. And then Captain Marvel is made, and then now they know before Thor comes down that cosmic threats are a thing. And just like, did you guys not watch the movies that you produced beforehand? Like this movie's fine existing. Just canonically, please put it after Thor so that you can make Nick Fury not a liar.
Oh my gosh. I do love my Tonner doll. She's got leather boots and fishnets. It's great. And a little whip. She's even got a little whip right here. It's her, well, not a whip, but it's her lasso of truth. And everything is metal. It's like metal. Cuffs, bracelets.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
They hung up on you guys. They've had it. I hear it. They've had it.
Sad.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you the Verizon guy?
No, he's trying to talk to the guy on the phone. Or girl.
Or
person.
All right.
All right. I think we got it. Think so.
Okay.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just have one question. Has anybody ever thought about holding Billy down and shaving his head?
I can honestly.
Billy's a racist.
I will drive to where Billy lives and do that if he'll let me. Can Billy? I do that, Billy? We'll raise money for a charity. Let's raise money for a charity. We meet that goal. I will drive to Billy's house and shave him. Like
I would say
the Chick-fil-A project.
I don't know Billy terribly well, but I think the statement he's a racist might not be based in fact.
I got a video you should see.
Well, if you look at that haircut that he's got right now, the only thing he's missing is a swastika.
Oh God!
Are you telling me right now?
I gotta drop you off because it's getting to 8:30. We gotta get Big Puncher and
thank you.
I'm hearing
long time listener, first time caller. Thank you very much.
All right,
I'm hearing two Franks, and I'm sure that's a fantasy for somebody, but not me.
Well, Billy, if you're game, let's raise money for a charity. I'll drive to your house and shave your head. What do you think?
He doesn't have enough hair to make that worth it.
No.
Well,
by the way, Billy,
it would have to be a beard thing.
We'd have to get have to dunk his head in Nair.
I've already put my beard on the line once before for a member of the Geek Room, but we didn't raise enough money.
Let me ask you a question, Billy. Do you?
It was you,
just
Bran.
out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity, do you have any idea who that caller was?
Was that Grampy Lobster?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
It was Grampy. Grampy, you twat.
But I wholeheartedly agree with that caller.
No.
Just gonna put that out there.
All of that is fake news.
No, we've got to hold Billy down and shave his head. Either that, or we get the hashtag Billy Booty Bounce. The choice is yours, Billy. You've got until midnight to decide.
I kind of want to see you guys try to hold me down.
I mentioned earlier when I heard the echo of Frank that I'm sure that's a fantasy for somebody, but holding Billy down is now making this get a little too close to reality. And I don't know how I feel about this.
Oh, God, I got to be careful if I say that in front of fucking Suris over here. There's going to be freaking
You guys know the rule. When you're on a stream with me, there's a chance that when you say something, you'll speak it into existence, and that's scary. Scientist Mel has artwork of her with a D20 staff saying I speak it into existence.
It's right over there. I still have it. I think if we do hold down Billy and shave him, we need to sing the Elton John song "Tiny Dancer," but with the wrong words. Hold me close, don't tie me down, Suris.
All right. Well, thank you, Scientist Mel. Thank you, Suris. I think we might need to have another discussion on this because this was actually really pretty. 30 minutes wouldn't have been enough time.
No,
whatsoever we needed to discuss this.
No, there's the mistake was giving us such a broad topic that so many things could be brought into to where it basically turned into Mel filibusters and then Suris filibusters, and then they just shake hands. That was basically the conversation. Mel filibusters, YouTube breaks. Suris filibusters, YouTube isn't broken yet. Pig Puncher's going to come in. It's going to break anyway. It'll be fine. That was it.
Was I the only one that heard the sound when you said YouTube breaks in the background? The actual sound of YouTube breaking?
Yeah. YouTube is breaking.
Oh,
all right. So how about this real quick before we get the other guys on? Chill out your guys' channels. And yeah.
You want to go first, Suris? I went first last time.
Sure, why not? I'll also answer. There's been a question in the chat repeatedly that I'll answer as well, in so doing. So my name is Suris. You can find me on youtube.com/Suris if you want to listen to an arrogant, pompous windbag talk about philosophy and debunk pseudoscience, then that's a place that you may want to go. Past that, if you want to see me platitude and fight people on Twitter at Suris Skeptic, it's a bad idea. Don't do it. Past that, there's been a question in the chat. Suris, are you an anarchist? Suris, what type of leftist are you? Suris, what type of this? Okay, I will say it. I probably will have to say it many times. So when I take political tests, it puts me very close to communist. Though from my own personal principles, I think that I sit more in like democratic socialist. That's where I sit. I think workers should own the means of production, but I also think that there is merit in having a hierarchy of elected officials that are rotated so that they cannot maintain power. That is my stance. There, it's answered, and I've shilled.
Awesome.
Return.
Two birds, one
you.
stone.
I am Scientist Mel. I do primarily science. I do talk about bad science. I kind of debunk science, like bad science as well, pseudoscience. But Saturdays, I have my Saturday morning science show. Today, actually, we talked about fear. We talked about science of fear, so that was fun. And tomorrow, I have my show with Doc Savage. It's called Oral Audacity. It's pretty funny. He's a Scotsman, and he swears a lot. And so last Sunday, we actually called Kent Hovind live on my phone, and he answered, which was interesting. So we have different guests on sometimes, and we talk about different things, but it's mostly just comedy and just ripping apart really bad science, pseudoscience, and awful ideas from me, Scientist Mel, and Doc Savage, who is also a scientist. So it's great. So check it out, scientistmel.com and youtube.com/scientistmel.
All right. Well,
Woo.
we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. We're going to get Pig Puncher and Rags in for the other debate, which is should Ion Fury took out the controversial words that was there. So thank you guys for coming on. It was fucking great. We're going to try to see if we can pick this back up at some point. So
Awesome.
I am perfectly fine having. I think the best thing we could possibly do next time, just as a matter of praxis, is have a slightly more like defined topic as opposed to a broad.
Yeah,
I will say that was my fault. So
that's okay. It was still fun though. We learned things, so that's nice.
Frank, shut up. Blame Billy. You haven't got that memo yet.
Billy, it's your fault.
Purple corset and glitter beard.
Before we hop out, Mel, I recommended Justice League to you. Is there anything that you would recommend to me for me to watch for my own research purposes or entertainment?
For Marvel, or you just
either Marvel or DC? You mentioned Supergirl earlier, and I haven't seen the TV show for it yet.
Oh yeah, I couldn't get through the first episode, to be honest with you. I wanted to blow my brains out. It was just like I couldn't get through it. I'm just like but some people really enjoyed it. But I have very different eyes, and they're kind of jaded. So it's really hard for me to enjoy certain things anymore in my old ripe age.
Fair enough.
So, but hey, give that a go. I did enjoy Green Arrow, and I loved Smallville. So I did like those TV shows. I really enjoyed Smallville, and I heard that Tom Welling is coming back to reprise his role on Green Arrow as Clark Kent. So I might actually pick that up and watch it.
We also apparently might be getting Michael Keaton again as a Batman at some point.
Wow, that would be cool. I would probably enjoy that, but I really did like Smallville, and I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I didn't have any representation, women issues at all with that TV show. I really enjoyed it, so I don't know if you'd seen it or not.
Okay.
I thought
it seems like Rags and Pig Puncher have logged in repeatedly.
All right. See you guys later.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
They did. All right, is Rags or Pig Puncher in right now?
They are not. I think they're probably having.
Am I on? Can you hear this?
Yes, we can hear you, Rags.
Oh, okay. I've never been on. I've never been on vmixcall.com.
We channeled Rags and hey, Rags, how you doing?
Hello. I can't read the chat or anything. Is there a way to make the image quality better?
No, I'll send you the watch link. We do it this way, so it looks like really good on the other end for the people. For us, it just looks all blurry.
Okay.
All right, so I think.
Yes. Here we go.
All right, so yeah, Big Puncher's coming. I think he's having a slight camera issue.
So when are we holding Billy down and shaving his head?
Next episode.
You can try.
Dude, we're gonna hold you down like those guys in that last video. Your woman's right over there, Billy.
Oh,
can you
fuck.
get up and get to her?
Yeah. I'm tossing it. Yeah. It's probably gonna be the one who's 5'2".
You don't want to try to toss the 6 foot person?
No.
Yeah.
I do not. You done barking?
All right. Give us 1 second.
Is it because there's another dog in the room you have to bark? Is that why, Vader?
It's kind of racist.
Rags will not replace you.
I agree.
I'm offended by your racist comment, which means I'm going to need you to leave the live stream now, because that's hate speech, my dude.
I second that.
Well,
you and your Richard Spencer haircut, get the fuck out of here.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Big Rush, what's up, dude?
How you doing?
All right. So now we got everybody in the room.
Hooray.
Smooth transition. So, and again, this topic is about Aeon Fury and some of the words that they had in one of their games.
Why do you pronounce it like that? Why would you say that? Why would you say Aeon Fury?
Because I am from South Carolina and pretty much
Aeon, the dinosaurs lived Aeon
ago. They walked with Jesus. So, yeah.
Fact.
All right.
I'm pretty sure it's just Ion Fury, okay?
Ion Fury. I'm sorry.
It used to be called Ion Maiden, but they got sued by Iron Maiden because Iron Maiden doesn't have enough money.
Hey, man, capitalism fucking sucks. Corporations going out of their way to suck money out of small game developers and the working man, you know what I mean?
I don't know what Iron Maiden's been up to these days. Maybe they just need something to do.
Dying?
Iron Maiden would be that would have been a better name. Iron Maiden.
I don't know. I mean, Ion Fury is a cool name. All right, what are we doing?
All right. So we want to go ahead and get started. Again, it's just a free. You guys got the floor. I don't know who wants to start, but I do know we do need to change the names because I don't think Big Puncher's name is Mel.
Yeah, no. I guess, do you want me to introduce myself and then Rags can do his thing? Okay,
yeah, let's do that.
My name is Pig Puncher. I'm a YouTuber and Twitch streamer. I've been doing it for about a little over a year now. I have like 11.4k subs, not too huge of a channel, and I do leftist political content and gaming. That's my thing. I guess you can introduce yourself now, Rags.
I am Rags. I have a YouTube channel, and I make videos about video games and social stuff. Pretty moderate kind of guy, I guess. Century, middle-y sort of dude. So if you want some amazing video content, you should go to my stream and watch. Not my stream. I do stream though. We're talking about my channel now. You can go and watch me over there at Rags, R-A-G-S. It's amazing. You'll have a gay old time.
Alrighty. Yeah, I've been watching your content. Yeah, you are. I've been watching this. I've been watching your channel since I was 16 years old. I'm 20 now. I originally started watching back when you did PC versus console videos, and that was kind of like how I was introduced to you. And that was like what I preferred. But I've kind of noticed you've over the last like year or so kind of gone more away from that, and you've done more culturally political videos, more in some cases even I've noticed pretty reactionary, which is kind of what we're going to be debating on, I guess, having to do with games and politics. But I don't know. I've always preferred your more PC versus console related videos, but I'm very well aware of you.
I got bored of the PC console stuff because I eventually felt like I was just making the same video over and over, and there wasn't really enough, I guess, diversity in the videos. It was just the same thing over and over for me, and I just kind of lost passion in it, and so I started moving into stuff that I just kind of felt more interest in.
Okay. Well, I guess, do you want to state your stance on the Ion Fury situation first?
I think it's a great game. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. and I'm glad that they didn't change anything, or at least they didn't change the infamous soap bottle, I suppose.
Sure. Okay. So my opinion is a little bit more complicated than that. Now, my general view is that when it comes to art, and I do believe video games are art, that the makers of said art, the artists, shouldn't be censored. They shouldn't be forced not to do anything or to remove anything against their will by any overarching power like the government or any large or organization. That's what censorship is. However, a lot of the times what I'll see is consumers will be upset by something that an artist may decide to include, in the example with Iron Fury and the soap bottle. And when the company decides to change their mind, a lot of people will call it censorship when that really isn't censorship. It's just more pressure from the public.
I think that when we use things like censorship and freedom of speech, freedom of expression, I think a lot of people are referring to the concept of it, not a literal legal sort of definition. Censorship comes not just from the top, from the government, but as we have seen, it's very possible, and it does happen, that you have groups, for instance, the Reset era groups, who do have influence in the industry, who will try to push companies who are not necessarily centralized into trying to get rid of people and get them fired. And that's the kind of thing that I don't like, and that's the thing that I think that we should be avoiding immensely.
So the problem is when you say, when you cite censorship when giving these examples, it comes with a very interesting connotation. So when I think censorship, and I think when most people think censorship, they may think, especially in gaming, they may think something like Germany's laws where they can't have swastikas in games because it's against their censorship laws. Like they removed them from Call of Duty, the new one, and they removed them from, I think, Wolfenstein as well, or even in China.
And you are
where
against that, right?
Of course, yeah. I'm always against censorship against artists, or just censorship in general most of the time. And then, of course, with the example of like WoW and censoring bones and flesh in China. So I think it's pretty harmful if you try to compare, or at least not necessarily compare, but try to equivocate, like literally the government censoring creators and artists from being able to include things in their games, and like a games journalist outlet that says, hey, look at this homophobic joke, and then people get upset about it and say, hey, that's kind of fucked up, maybe you should remove that, even if they do it in a very mean-spirited and almost harassy way. That in that case, it's just kind of shitty, and it's just sort of...
Would you say it's almost harassy, or would you say that it is harassy?
I mean, can you give me an example? I mean, there's plenty of examples where I imagine there's been death threats and stuff, and that's full-on harassment. But most cases, it just seems like a lot of people...
Calls to get people fired, for instance. So if you had people saying this person should be fired, would that be harassment?
It depends. So if you have somebody who does something of like with this, yeah, probably. Well, yeah, it depends the way they do it. So if they're constantly like sending hate mail to the company or something, then that's probably harassment. Yeah, but I mean, it's not censorship. So that's like my main problem is when people misuse the term.
All right, then
in general.
Well, then, if the issue here is just the idea of whether it's called censorship or not, I understand that. I understand you don't want to conflate the two. I don't think that in circles, among gamers, among people in general, people would actually say, yeah, this is the censorship that comes from one place is equal to the censorship that comes from like a government entity. I don't think people ever make that confusion. Maybe there's some people out there. But if you would rather use a different word, then I'm fine with that. It doesn't change the concept for me, so I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue.
I mean, you said that, but a lot of the time when I see people talking about this, and granted, this is made up from many anecdotes. I mean, I read all the review bombs that after the Ion Fury developers originally said they were going to remove the Ogay thing, and they made their apology. I read all of the review bombs. I spent the last 2 days doing it, like just scrolling down. People were review bombing it and saying the game's amazing and everything, but they turned to censorship. They bent the knee to these SJW hate mobs, and they censored themselves. And even the devs themselves said they were censoring themselves. So I just think, I mean, they kind of did it too.
Government. Does anyone think that's coming from the government? Because no one does.
No, but a lot of people are misusing the term, and that's the problem. I mean, like,
I don't think that's
I'm pretty. sure there's people who conflate the idea that like a bunch of people or some journalist outlet or a bunch of people complaining online have the same amount of power as the government does. I mean, it just seems like it's a misuse of the word, and that's something that kind of worries me.
Do you think they actually think that they have the same amount of power as the actual government?
No, I don't think you do. I think some people are probably dumb enough to think they have that much influence, but
I'm sure out there somewhere I'm sure out there somewhere there's someone who actually thinks that a journalist site has the same amount of power as the government. Yeah, I wouldn't even talk about those people. They're probably way out there. But I don't think there's any conflation between censorship of the government and between these game journalist sites. I mean, game journalist sites, I mean, they do have, industry-wise at least, I think it's fair to say that they have a decent amount of power, especially when it comes to influence.
Sure, yeah, influence is one thing, but once again, you know, censor, like, do you consider if somebody gets banned off of Twitter or something, do you consider that censorship?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, so that's the problem. I kind of run into this issue with a lot of people. So that wouldn't really be considered censorship. That would be deplatforming.
It's so both, if you want to call it. Yeah, when I say censorship, I don't mean exclusively from the government. And if that's just a terminology issue, then fine. But we both agree. Well, we both agree it's deplatforming, right?
Deplatforming is deplatforming, yes. I mean, so if somebody, like the example I like to give actually would be like, say you're walking down the street and you're carrying like a megaphone for some reason, and you walk past this guy who's like yelling some shit out in the street to people, and he says, "Hey, can I borrow your megaphone?" And you're like, yeah, just don't say anything fucked up with it. Like, don't yell the N-word or something. You hand them the microphone, they take it, and they scream the N-word, and you take it back, and they're like, what the fuck? Why are you censoring me? I mean, that's kind of the comparison I do between like getting banned from Twitter, for example, and I don't think that's a very good.
I don't think it's a very good comparison, because on Twitter you can pretty much choose with an incredible level of control who you do and do not listen to. Whereas someone walking down the street with a megaphone, people don't have a choice in whether or not they hear that.
I mean, that's kind of irrelevant. The important part is when you sign up for Twitter or YouTube, you sign a TOS. You kind of agree to a set of rules whenever you join the platform. And if you break those rules, you do go to risk of having your platform taken away. You don't lose the ability to say anything. No one's stopping you from saying it, but you are losing your platform, the platform they gave you. So that's not really...
Twitter applies those rules evenly? Do you think they apply those rules fairly?
Yeah, probably. As a matter of fact, I would say most of the time it's actually no. I'd say larger figures usually get away with a lot more than smaller people do. I got banned for Twitter because I told a homophobe to eat shit and die. But there's like people on Twitter right now who are like literal white nationalists who spread like neo-Nazi propaganda, and they aren't banned. So I mean, no, actually, they don't do it evenly. But that's pretty irrelevant.
I don't think they do either.
The point. Yeah, no, they generally don't. And as a matter of fact, they'll ban Twitter will ban you if you get mass reported. Doesn't matter what for. If enough people try to mass report you, doesn't matter if you're like the wokest SJW in the land or the craziest neo-Nazi in the world, you're going to get banned. The problem is... sorry, what'd you say? You cut out?
I'm banned off Twitter.
Oh, yeah, I tried to find your Twitter because I was going to follow you, but yeah.
For promoting hatred or violence against a protected / minority / whatever. You know, typical Twitter. We're not going to tell you what did it, but here's some amorphous rule that is the reason why you got kicked off. So yeah, my Twitter is not around.
Did they tell you what tweet it was?
Nope. No, it's Twitter. They'll tell you. No.
I don't know. I mean,
when they get warnings, they'll tell you, like, say, delete this tweet, or you have to make this tweet go away because it broke our terms. But yeah, my suspension didn't come with a particular tweet, just an ambiguous reason.
Did you tweet? What do you think it was? If you could think, what tweet do you think did it?
It's probably when I said nigger.
I'm on Twitch. Someone delete the VOD. Will I get in trouble for that? Will I get in trouble for that, chat? That might do it. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You agreed to a set of rules, just like I agreed to a set of rules when I joined Twitch. You know, if you break those rules, you'll get deplatformed. It's not necessarily censorship because you can, still say it, but you kind of agreed to their set of rules.
I would say that we have reached a certain point where Twitter has essentially replaced the public discourse, and there does come a point. Well, before we get too far, is it all right if we stray this far from the whole Ion Fury thing?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's almost kind of related because it's, yeah.
All right. I think when it comes to, yeah.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say that eventually I think that platforms get to such a large size that they dominate the public discourse. And when they do that, they have such immense control over the way that we think and the way that we communicate with each other as society that we should be certainly a lot more careful that the companies who make these decisions as to whether or not you're allowed to speak on these platforms should, we need to take a very close look on these things. We have to examine them very carefully. And I think that people, I don't think people should be banned for saying, if people want to say nasty, horrible, racist stuff, fine. I don't agree with it, but I think that they should have the freedom to do that. And even though it is it's a private platform, as you said, it has a terms of service. I don't think that any longer kind of constitutes an out or a almost like a retreat from the idea that, yeah, here's someone, especially when we know that there's plenty of people who get banned for Lord knows what, like myself, who knows what it really was, regardless of context that anything was being said in, it doesn't matter, right? I think it's very worrying. When you look at Alex Jones, whether you like him or not, I think he's a mixed bag. But when you look at a guy like Alex Jones and the fact that he can be essentially deleted from the vast majority of the internet just like that, I think that's the kind of thing that should concern us. And as
Alex
it relates
Jones
to the whole,
literally claimed that a shooting was a false flag, and his fans were going after the families of the people who died.
Okay,
sending death threats and stuff like that. Listen. I'm generally not in favor of deplatforming, except for like very specific cases. But a case like with Alex Jones, where like because of what he was saying, people were going out and like going after the family of dead people who died in a shooting because they think it was a false flag because Alex Jones is spreading like crazy conspiracy theories. I think that's a case where literal people are getting hurt. I think that's a case where you can probably justify the banning of Alex Jones.
I wouldn't say so. No, I think that we need to make sure that we draw extremely big lines between, well, first off, I need to see what he actually said. I need to see what he said. I'm pretty sure he went back on the whole Sandy Hook thing. But even at the time, now I will say this. If Alex Jones was specifically telling people to go out and harass person at name or whatever, that's one thing. All right, that's one thing. But if he is putting out a conspiracy theory about something and as a result his fans are doing something, that's not going to be a reason I think he should be banned.
I mean, you are in a way responsible for your audience to a degree, and if your audience is doing, as a matter of fact, I think you do a really good job. I can give you a really good example. I think you do a really good job of influencing your audience not to go after people. Do you remember the video that you did on that one kid? He was very young, and it was very clear that you made sure to say at the beginning, do not search this kid out. Do not go and harass him. You even at the beginning of your videos, you say, hey, don't go out of your way to attack these people. Inevitably, some people are going to go to their channels and say you're a fucking idiot or something. But you do a really good job of controlling your audience. But when there's somebody who has such a huge audience who's saying such negative things about somebody like that, this shooting was a false flag, and you have an audience like Alex Jones knows he has, the people in Alex Jones's audience aren't exactly the most stable people, you have a serious amount of responsibility when it comes to that. I
would agree and disagree. I'd agree and disagree. So I agree that you have a responsibility to not incite people to do things. And even then I'm kind of on the fence because ultimately an audience does decide for themselves what they do and their actions are on them. But I see what you're coming from. I would disagree in the idea that somebody should, like if Alex Jones says things and he's not telling anybody to do anything, he's not telling anybody to go somewhere, he's just saying, this is a conspiracy and the government's doing it to something alien, crystal, energy demons, whatever Alex Jones goes on to, whatever tangent. And as a result, there are people in his audience who think it's in their best interest or it's their idea to go out and do something. I don't think it's fair to necessarily punish Alex Jones for that. It would like that's the thing. When you have a situation like this, I think it's extremely contextual. And we have videos that happen all across the internet, as have been happening for years and years, where if somebody criticizes something, then that is labeled as, oh, you are inciting harassment and da-da-da. So, I mean, when an issue like this, I think is really, I mean, I don't agree with the ban. I wouldn't ban him. I think the people who went out and did the harassment, they should be the ones who are, like, if you're contacting people, if you're sending credible death threats, if you are going to people's house, stuff like that, yeah, that's one thing. But I don't think Alex Jones, just by spreading a conspiracy theory that he believes is true, is a bannable offense.
I mean, if you're spreading a lie, even if he believes it's true, which he, I mean, when in court, his response to this, because he's been taken to court over this, his defense is always, "I'm an entertainer, and so I'm just doing an act." But the people who watch him don't watch him because they think it's an act. So when he says something like, literally, "This was a false flag. This is the government trying to impede on your rights," that was his point. He was trying to claim that the government was false flagging a lie, like a school shooting, in order to have them take away their guns. And you know how the people who love their guns are. I own my guns. I know you own guns too, because I've watched your videos.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're spreading misinformation that ends up causing harm, I don't know if you can really defend the idea of not deplatforming that individual when harm is being caused by them having that platform.
I don't think so. I think it's easy to defend, because this is the responsibility of the people who actually go and commit the acts, not the person who is out there spreading their opinion on whether they think something's a conspiracy or not. If there's somebody in an audience who goes out and do something, then they need to be the ones who are held accountable for it. If somebody does something in somebody else's name, then, that's not that person's fault. And I think when it comes to the
Sorry, someone in my chat sent me a literal quote that he said, "There is danger here, people. You're being lied to by these within reach people." He that sounds like he's heavily implying that they are, within reach. You're being lied to. There's danger here. That's like a call to action.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a call to action.
I mean, I don't know how you can say that. It sounds like if you're saying you're in danger and people are lying to you, then I mean, he couldn't, if he wanted to call people to action, he can't just say, "Hey, go kill these people," or "Go attack somebody." You have to sort of, go hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I know that's kind of like difficult to pin down, but.
Wait, did he say you have to attack them?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
I mean, it seems pretty implied, but okay.
All right. I don't get that, but I'm also not very. I didn't know we'd be talking about Alex Jones. I don't know too much about a lot of the details. Just what I'm operating on, I do stand by what I think. I just didn't know the conversation would sway this way, so I think that's kind of interesting. But even with that said, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so my stance generally is that the only people who should be deplatformed are people who spread misinformation with the intent, or at least a somewhat discernible intent, that they intend to cause harm. So if somebody goes out and they claim things like, I don't know, Alex Jones also did the Pizzagate thing and said the government was run by Satanists who are raping little kids. There's an obvious call to action there. I mean, if you found out the government was being run by Satanists raping kids, I think you'd want to do something. But I don't know, someone who spreads misinformation with the intent to most likely make people rise to action and try to attack people, that's when I think someone should be deplatformed, specifically when they spread misinformation. I
think it would certainly have to be a lot more specific than spreading information with an intent, because intent can sometimes, in a lot of cases, be very difficult to pin down. I'm okay with the idea that if somebody gets up and says this, they say a lie, or even if they say a truth, and then tell people to go out and specifically commit acts of violence or to commit crimes, I think that's something that needs to be looked at, obviously case by case basis. But I think that the idea of misinformation and intent really kind of amorphous, and I think that can be abused immensely. But I don't necessarily disagree with the overarching idea. I just think that in a case like this, the devil's certainly in the details.
I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure YouTube probably, it was like a big thing, like a YouTube, Facebook, all these different platforms came together and were like, yeah, Alex Jones is causing actual harm and we're going to be held accountable for hosting him. We got to get him out of here. That's also another thing. A lot of these platforms do end up being held responsible for hosting these individuals. And so they feel they take some form of blame.
I would be more on board with the idea if I feel that the rules were applied equally. Let's take Antifa is a good example. They go out, commit acts of violence. Should Antifa groups be banned under the same rule? Well, if we want to weigh them the same, it depends. I mean, if people were held to the same standard, if you had rules that were applied equally, then I would be somewhat more on board with the idea. But again, I think a lot of the problem is that Twitter, especially YouTube, they're very mysteriously corporate in that kind of that shadowy sort of way that Twitter and YouTube are, as we all know. So I think it's the fact that it's them doing that and they're not open and they don't communicate and they don't hold people to the same standards that is causing a lot of the immense distrust that people like me have with rules that can deplatform people.
Okay, so do you know why these social media platforms tend to ban certain people rather than like Antifa or something like that?
Tell me.
I mean, the reason is because Antifa isn't really a group. It's more of a movement. Like there is no group Antifa. There is no leader of Antifa, and you can't become a member. Sure. The problem is you have to identify as it, and you have to find some sort of discernible connection. So like, there's a huge difference between some account on Twitter that's like, I don't know, New England Antifa. I guess that's like, I think it's one I saw once. There's a difference between that and like a large public figure like Alex Jones, who has like a live show, and there's like undeniable connection between him and the reasons why they want to ban these or ban him. With Antifa, it's just
this would apply to an individual as well. This would apply to an individual who says, I'm Antifa and you should do Antifa things and go out and you should bash this person or punch this guy and things of that nature. If you held these two things to the same standard, then I would be far more in line with the idea.
I see people getting banned all the time for saying violence towards like the lefties getting banned for saying these things. They got banned for saying a homophobe should eat shit and die. They're pretty consistent with it. The way Twitter does it. Yeah, I got banned from Twitter. I made a new one. Don't tell them. But, I mean, they don't care that much. I won't tell anybody. Yeah, I only had. I'm kind of glad to be. Oh yeah, Twitter's a hell site.
Yeah, I definitely think my life got better after I got banned from Twitter as well.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's a terrible place. But like, my point here is that Twitter generally does hold they hold, I would argue, somewhat liberal views, like probably pretty left leaning. But that doesn't mean that when they, yeah, probably. I mean, it seems like most like YouTube and whatnot do, but usually I don't see that typically affecting their decisions when they ban somebody. If you do something that breaks TOS and you get reported, you're probably either going to get your account locked and have to delete the tweet if you're lucky. Those are warnings, or you're going to get full on banned. I got full on banned because I told someone to eat shit and die. You got banned because I guess you called someone the N-word or said the N-word.
Nope. Nope. Just said it. And I was actually someone said that people of a certain race aren't allowed to use a certain word. And so I was basically replying to them because I think that everyone from every race should be able to use every word and that every race should be held to the same standards. So I got banned.
But you said the N-word in your tweet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, TOS, man. So do you think that part of that has to do with the fact that corporations probably have a little bit too much power?
I would say some of them do. I would say that they can get to a point where they do. I would say I think Twitter and Google have too much power. I think there's a certain threshold they can reach. Yeah, I'm a pretty libertarian guy, but I think there does get to a certain point when a company can get so big that we have to start getting a little wary.
Sure. I'm generally wary of every corporation, every big company. I typically find that corporations are very flawed with how they. I'm just gonna be honest with you here. I'm a leftist. I advocate for market socialism, so I am very quick to criticize corporations. However, when we're living in a society that is capitalist, where corporations have their rights as well. So, for example, Twitter has their right to ban whoever they want, and it doesn't count as unconstitutional because if it doesn't, the First Amendment doesn't apply to corporations and companies or private companies. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a problem. But generally, I see a lot of people direct their issues with this more towards the bias of specific companies or more towards specific companies. Like if we want to bring it back to gaming, EA, for example, one of the most hated, terrible fucking corporations in the gaming industry, next to like, I have a reputation. Shit. Yeah. And so I see, I see a lot of people who will put pressure on EA, but EA isn't the only company doing this. I mean, Blizzard does it too. Like list every corporation in the gaming industry that does it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they do all this horrible shit. And I'll see a lot of the times that a lot of gamers will I don't want to say complain because that sounds mean, but you know, they'll make their voices heard about things like loot boxes and microtransactions, copy paste.
It's fine to call it complaining. Yeah. That's what it is. I think it's a reasonable way to say it.
I complain about it too. So I mean, yeah. And then I'll see a lot of them explain about or like complain about these specific things, but they never really attack the root of the problem. Every corporation in existence, their main goal is to make money. They all want to make money, and they'll do whatever they have to do in order to do so. You know, usually the best games ever made are all indie games. I think you'd agree with that. I mean, Minecraft, for example, wasn't made with the intent of making a lot of money. It's amazing. So I kind of get upset.
I do play a lot more AA and indie games these days, yes.
Yeah, so it just don't you think that maybe a lot more of the blame lies on the economic system that incentivizes, like YouTube, for example, to demonetize people so that their advertisers won't pull their ads? Don't you think more of the blame lies on the economic system than the individual bias of these companies?
No, I don't think so. I think that when you have a system like now, and I didn't expect to get into a capitalism thing about corporations, but I do find it interesting. I would say that I think it's probably a better idea to formulate rules that fix issues as they arise. When it comes to EA and stuff, a lot of the people who have a problem with loot boxes, myself, you, a lot of other people, were dissatisfied not because there's an attempt at profit being made. It's how it's gone about. It's how the issue happens. And I think that is kind of the way that we're going to fix the problem. I don't think it's going to be a restructuring of an economic system. I think that the issue will be resolved through, if a problem arises, we need to come up with some idea or some law, some rule, some regulation. And I'm not always a fan of regulations. I'll say it, fairly libertarian guy. But I think when you have, loot boxes in games that, sell to kids and stuff like that, yeah, I do think that there's a place for rules. But I don't think that the issue is necessarily because these companies just want to make a profit. I think that all of these problems can follow that to some degree, but I think that's going too far to the root and not addressing.
No. Every corporation, their main goal is to make money, but they provide a service of some kind in exchange for that money. And certain companies, certain corporations go out of their way to go about as far as they can to squeeze out every dollar they can, with the loot boxes and copy pasted sequels and shit like that. That doesn't mean every corporation doesn't have that goal at heart, and they will always
I'm fine with them having that goal at heart.
Sure, but they will always step on the consumer. Well, they will always, if they got the opportunity to step on the consumer. We've seen it. I mean, there was a time when EA wasn't as hated.
I'm not denying they don't do it. I think that it's better to say, okay, you're doing X, so let's have a rule against X. And you can't do that.
Wait, right? You realize that the number one goal of corporations is to make money, and at any point any chance they get, they will find a way to fuck with consumers. I mean, they've been pushing their luck for years. Well, I mean, loot boxes first became a thing with I think it was this one FIFA game on the PlayStation 2, and they've been sneaking it in over the years. They're going to continue to do this, and it's not because these individual corporations are corrupted. It's because we are in an economic system which incentivizes them to do this.
But there's no reason that just because people want to make a profit and they'll do a lot of stuff to do it, that necessarily it's predatory or bad in any way. That's why what I'm saying is if they do something that is bad, then there needs to be a rule specifically that they can't do that one thing. I don't think necessarily problem just stems from the fact that they want to make money.
It does. They're doing it to make money. So, for example, if you look at most indie game developers, you usually see that they typically engage in more consumer-friendly practices. Sure. A lot of the time, they for example, a game that I'm following very closely right now is Dead Matter. They aren't doing any beta releases. They aren't going to do early release or anything. And every week, they are doing. They do these dev vlogs and everything. They aren't going to do microtransactions or anything. They're making this game. It's going to be amazing. They're going to make some money, but they have the goal of making a beautiful, awesome, fun game. That's their goal. They don't have money at heart. Sure. And you usually get better content when you don't have corporations that have money being their main goal. Because then, when you do, you get fucking loot boxes and stuff. I can give you tons of examples of amazing games that are made by corporations or by people who never had revenue at the center of their mind when they made them. Minecraft is a good example.
Sure, yeah. There's tons of examples of indie games that are great, of AA level games that are great, of smaller development companies who even have larger producers who will, get them the money to make the games that they want. There's tons of examples like this. But when we talk about the really, really big stuff, the EAs, the Activisions, and stuff like that, if we can identify what a problem is, that they're trying to do this thing in order to make money, then I think that the best solution is to say, all right, you can't have these rules. You have to follow these rules. There are these things that you have in the game that are either predatory or they're not legal in these countries or they're gambling or whatever the issue is. Address them and say, you are not allowed to do this. You're going to have to come up with a different way to make money that isn't, predatory. That isn't something that we've identified to be bad. Because if anything, they're certainly inventive.
You don't think that corporations do shady shit that's against the law all the time to make more money?
I think they do. I mean, that's just a problem.
I mean, if we put more, this is why I advocate for market socialism rather than like more rules and more laws and whatnot to kind of try to restrict the ways in which corporations are currently extorting the consumer now, because we can ban loot boxes, we can ban microtransactions even, but they'll find other ways. They'll figure out little get-arounds. I mean, for example, I'm pretty sure for a while it was illegal to just pay for different upgrades in games. So what they'll do is they'll add sort of an in-game cryptocurrency, and you pay real money for that, and then that's what you use. They'll find ways around it. They'll always do it. Everything from game corporations to the oil industry does things that are illegal to make more money. They'll do anything. That's why I don't advocate for more laws and more restrictions, because they'll ignore them. They have the money, they have the power to do it, they have the lawyers. But in an economic system where they can't exist because, at market socialism, the workers own the means of production. I'm sure you know all these memes, I assume.
Well, I mean, I'm not really an economic guy, actually. This conversation's not something I normally delve into, but I definitely see where you're coming from. I understand what I think you're trying to say, and I think to some degree there's certainly a place for it. I'm not going to say that the entire idea is a bad one, and I'm not going to say that everything in capitalism is a good one. I've never been like a super everything capitalism's done's good. But I tend to be more in the field of, if there's an issue in the system we have, probably better to do what we can to fix it instead of maybe swapping to something entirely different.
I don't know. Again, I generally see reformism. So that's the problem. I don't agree with reformism. That's kind of a reformist mindset. I think that if you have a system like capitalism, which is its root, the root of the problem is it is a economic system based on profit and exploiting workers to make as much money as possible. You can't really just patch a bunch of band-aids on top of that and expect everything to be okay.
I don't think that I don't think that capitalism is just about exploiting people for profit. I'm sure it happens, but I think it's created a great deal of wealth, and people are very well off generally, and seems to be the best thing that we've tried so far. And from what I've seen, I mean, what sort of a system? I can't believe we're having economics discussions. Really isn't my forte. If we have let's take EA for instance. What would you say should be done about EA on your system? Because I'm kind of curious.
Okay, so I advocate for market socialism. I said that before. Market socialism means there would still be markets. There would still be the ability for people to come together and create products and people to buy them. There would still be businesses, but the means of production are socially owned. They are publicly owned. So it's very similar to co-ops. You've heard of co-ops, right?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like every single worker has the same amount of share in the company and everything. The people who manage everything are democratically elected. Decisions are made democratically. It's how a lot of indie game studios actually work as well, which is why another thing for them. I mean, if this structure is what we're seeing from some of the best, most respected businesses, or I guess you would places of work out there. Yeah, we can call them businesses. If this is the system that most of the most respected businesses out there are using, then it seems like it's probably better than the economic system that is incentivizing EA and Microsoft and Ubisoft and whatnot. I mean,
do you think, if you have a company who wants to do that, they have the freedom to do that if they wish. So let them do that.
To do what?
To become essentially a video game co-op. Yeah, if they have the ability to do that and they have the freedom to do that, then I think any company who wants to do that and set up that system should be allowed to.
So it's not so much about freedom and ability. I mean, you heard about the sad tale of Visceral Games, right? I mean, you can try to start an indie game development company, but if things start to go downhill, a bigger corporation is going to buy you out, and they're going to put you underground. That's what EA did with or Activision, EA, I can't remember.
Well,
with Visceral Games.
Well, when it comes to like Visceral, I mean, ultimately they decided to be bought out, right? Like if they were for sale. Bankrupt. Yeah, so they did the thing that they thought would save them. They were going bankrupt. They didn't have any money. They were going to fail anyway, it seemed. A shame, certainly.
Well, yeah, so that's the problem. If you have better I can't speak. It's really late at night for me. If you have better redistribution of wealth in a market socialist economy rather than a capitalist economy, it's not so much that you have these indie game developers or these indie game studios that are just kind of struggling to survive, and they're trying to get air, and sometimes they go out of business and they have to let themselves be bought out by larger corporations. Instead, those larger corporations don't really exist. It's just a bunch of smaller indie game development companies.
Oh, then they'd definitely be screwed then, because there'd be no one to get a relief of any kind, to get a publisher or to get a producer that's that big, or a publisher that's that big. I don't. Maybe I'm not following. I don't see exactly how this would fix like the Visceral issue.
You wouldn't have massive publishers and whatnot. You would just be producing games, and you put them up on, I don't know, like any public marketplace, Steam, for example, which would also be in a market socialist economy, more of a co-op. Like indie games do survive now. They would survive even better in a market socialist economy, and that goes for any business, especially smaller ones. This isn't just exclusive to gaming.
Do you think, what would the difference between, like, obviously, as with any system, because inherently humans, are fallible things, what would the difference of corruption be between a market socialist system, especially in the gaming industry, with the one we have now? What would the differences be?
Oh, huge differences. So right now we have people who are way at the top rung of the ladder when it comes to these massive corporations. Look at the people who are running EA. These people are making like several $billion a year salaries, several $1 million a year salaries. No one's making massive, like these kinds of salaries generally, or no one person, I should say, is making these kind of salaries under a market socialist economy. Rather, the share and the pay is distributed equally among the workers. So it'd be like, you have your indie game.
What if the workers do different jobs and they do different levels of work and things like that?
I mean, their work is still valuable. You take one cog out of the machine and it's going to fall apart. They still deserve to be compensated.
Yeah, but some people are obviously more important than others in it. Oh, I think we had a stream hiccup. Hello?
Oh, no, I'm still here. It roboted for a second.
All right. I was saying, obviously, when you have a development team, some people are more important than others. When you're performing pretty much any task, would they all be paid the same?
Sure. Yeah, no, these people would be paid more. They would be elected democratically to their positions, because people would decide, yeah, this person's more important, or this person is more, I should say, qualified than the rest of us, and they would probably get paid more, but they wouldn't be, no one's getting exploited for their labor value like they are in capitalism. I mean, most people, even people getting minimum wage, are being paid way less than their work is actually worth. But I mean, it's a complicated discussion.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an economist, so this isn't really my forte. It definitely sounds interesting. Not on board, but it certainly sounds interesting. But I will say this. I don't believe at all for an instant, because I've seen people who are, well, I'll say this. I think that you are certainly not, sorry, I'm kind of searching for words. You forgive me. I thought this was on the 7th at 5 and not the 5th at 7. So I just woke up before this. But
no, it's all good. Yeah,
I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. I think it's interesting. I think you've got nifty ideas. I still think that the best thing is to take what we have and change it, add rules, structure it this way or that. But I certainly see where you're going, and I think it's an interesting idea. And maybe, I mean, I'm not exactly, if EA falls over and dies tomorrow, I'm not going to be shedding a tear. So who knows if they're going to ever get what's coming to them? Who knows? I know that they're squeaky and they're sneaky, and they'll try to get around the rules as much as possible. Maybe that's an issue with the structure of the rules as they are. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it that deeply. Not generally something that I cover that much. I obviously am big on consumer rights and stuff like that when it comes to gaming. I'm anti loot boxes, gambling, and stuff like that, or at least when it's not properly labeled. Not necessarily against gambling, I suppose. But I think there's a lot of discussion there to be had. It's interesting to think about. But
yeah, I mean, I'm always in favor of the consumer. That's the thing. I will always side with the consumer over any corporation, no matter what the corporation is doing. But I mean, we can, I don't know if you have to go or not, but we can bring it back around to the Ion Fury thing because they did want to get.
Yeah, we can chat. Yeah, we can chat a little bit about it. Yeah, I can stick around for a while. Again, and I do apologize. It's a legitimate error on my part that I thought this was going to be on October the 7th at 5 p.m., not October the 5th at 7 p.m. So I'm a bit unprepared, and I do apologize. I don't want to disrespect your time, but I did go through and I looked some of this. Huh?
I was saying you're good. So
all right, I got you. I just feel I do feel a little bit embarrassed about that. I know it has happened before where I mix numbers. Perhaps I'm a little dyslexic. But when it comes to Ion Fury, I don't think that there was anything really in there that was... Well, let me ask you this. Do you think they should have changed it?
I think it kind of depends on their... Now, personally, I kind of don't... I mean, I don't like seeing like homophobic or just harmful shit in media. You know, it doesn't make me feel good. But then again, you know, I'm all in favor of the artist's freedom. But it kind of depends on the... It's a complicated discussion because it depends on the goals of the developers and the goals of the company, right? So the problem is, are you aware of the Discord screenshots that leaked of the devs?
Yeah, I saw them.
About,
yeah,
I saw them. So they were saying some very mostly transphobic shit. Wait, what is your opinion on trans people? I just want to ask really quick.
People can do what they feel is best, and I don't have a problem with trans people. I think that it can be... I think the trans issue can be overly politicized, if that makes sense. But man, if you feel like you're trans, then go for it. Like, I think that you need to do what's best for you. I have no problem if you're trans. Go for it if you feel that it's best. But I think that it's always good to also add that, man, word of caution, this is a big thing that you're doing. So really make sure that it's something you want to do. But man, I don't have anything really for or against trans people. They're just people like everyone else for the most part.
So I watched a few of your videos, some of your newer ones, because I've kind of slacked off on watching your videos over the last year or so. But I watched one of your newer ones today where you said that there's only 2 genders and the rest are glorified moods. I want to know if you stand by that, because I want to red pill you on transgenderism if that's the case. I suppose I would. It's a little bit of a joke. It's a little bit of a joke because I was I was reading through a list of genders and stuff like that, and I was like, oh wait, these are just moods people have. I do think that gender and sex are inextricably linked. I do think that both of the genders, while there are 2, there is in a vast spectrum, but I don't really care about it all that much, honestly. If you want to be whatever, that's fine with me. If you want to be whatever gender you want, that is totally fine with me. You do your thing. You go out there and be the best, whatever you want to be. That is totally okay with me. Just don't tell me that I have to call you certain things or I have to label you as something or something like that. Well, so here's the problem. So it may say if you want. So when you say you can do whatever you want to do, that may sound like okay, that's acceptance or whatnot. But then when you say, but you can't,
okay, not
don't tell me to call you what you. Well, I mean, okay, so.
Yeah, when I say go out and do whatever you want to do, I mean it's with the implication that live your life, just don't have it infringe on the things that I want to say and do. As long as it's not hurting you, then okay, it's fine.
Okay, so that's the problem, because that's technically not really acceptance. It seems like it is, but it's not. So here's the problem. You said before that sex and gender are inextricable. Fuck, I can't speak today. They're linked, right? That's what you said.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So I've gotten a lot of arguments with people, but currently the current well-known not well-known, but the current academic understanding of sex and gender is a little bit more complicated than I think a lot of people understand. We sort of could split these up in the academic community into 4 different categories. You have your chromosomal sex, your sexual characteristics, your gender identity, and your gender expression. Your chromosomal sex is down into your blood, in your DNA, your chromosomes. You have XY and XX, and then you have a bunch of other ones as well that's intersex. There isn't even 2 chromosomal sexes, by the way. But there's literally
there's the third outlier, right?
No, there's literally hundreds.
There's male, female, and
like literally hundreds of other forms of intersex. Like you can have XXY, YYXX, and then these can even manifest in physical changes. There are people out there who have like
outliers to the norm, or are they?
Yeah. Yeah, they're outliers to the norm, but a lot of people say they're a binary, which means there's two. But if there's outliers, that means it can't be a binary. Instead, it's a bimodal distribution.
Well,
or something along those lines, or a spectrum even.
Well, I think when people say humans have 10 fingers, they're not saying you can't have 11 or 9 or something like that. I think, for me, I absolutely recognize that intersex people exist, and there are issues that pop up that are outside the norm, that aren't, I guess, if you could say it, dare I say it, biologically intentional. But yeah, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. There are mutations and things that happen, and not everyone turns out like the norm.
Yeah, so the important thing is just to know, like, it's not even a binary on the chromosomal level, and then the scientific understanding of sex characteristics is a bimodal distribution. So you have what you would consider like masculine on one end, and you have what would be considered feminine on one end. Like thick body, breasts, vagina, uterus, and whatnot on the more feminine end, and like muscles, a penis, balls, things like that on the male end, or on the masculine end. And you have women who are more muscular and who are more on the, or females, I should say, who are more masculine looking. And you have plenty of males who are more feminine looking and even have more estrogen than they do testosterone, and vice versa. So we don't even consider like sexual characteristics a binary. So I see that mistake made a lot. And then gender is pretty separate of it. So for example, you have gender identity. This is how you personally identify, and you can identify however you like, because gender is a social construct. It's constructed by society. We've had societies in the past where there's been more than 2 genders. And even in our society, scientific community does consider there to be more than 2 genders because it is socially constructed. If you are in a space that recognizes more than 2, then there are more than 2. It doesn't really matter, especially when it's your identity. And then you have gender expression. This refers to how you express yourself. So it doesn't really matter how you express yourself. It's however you identify. Now,
yeah, I don't have a problem with people identifying or expressing themselves as whatever.
Okay, so so you say that, but you said before you don't want anyone pushing it on you. So I'm trying to make I'm trying to do here is kind of
asterisk. Let me clarify just that there. I don't mind if people say that I should call them something. And generally, like, I'll call Blair White her preferred genders, Riley J. Dennis her preferred genders. That I'll go with that. That's totally fine. Absolutely, no problem at all with that. But a lot of that does come to the same level of respect that I have to everyone else. If there's someone that I hate their guts and I think they're a terrible, horrible person and they do bad things, then I'm going to be calling them nasty names in one sense. And if they say, no, you have to call me such and such, I might not respect that. But yeah, generally by default, absolutely. If somebody wants to go by something, then I'll probably call them that. But if
so
there's
if you find out, really quick, if you find out a black person is like, I don't know, a pedophile or something really terrible, do you think that like means you can be racist to them? You can call them the N-word, you can call them a subhuman piece of shit. Do you think like being racist towards a black person because they're like a terrible person, or they've lost your respect, do you think that would be like acceptable?
Well,
for you?
Well, racism towards someone because they've done something, it's because they've done something, not because they're a particular race.
Well, that's the problem here, because what we're equating here is someone's gender identity. So someone's gender identity is factual. It's not so much how they identify. If they identify that way, by the definition of gender and gender identity, they are that thing. I mean, I don't know, let's take Jeffrey Epstein. He's like a fucking rapist and stuff. You don't start calling him she because, hey, he's a rapist. Why should I call him by his identity? Because it's,
that's not something that I would do. That's kind of out there.
So let's say Blair White, it comes out that Blair White's a pedophile. Let's say that happens in a day or two. Who knows? Would you start, you under your logic, you would probably start calling Blair White he, because they've, she's lost your respect.
No, I wouldn't. No.
I mean, that just seemed like that's where you're going with it. Like you wouldn't go out of your way to call someone what they prefer.
I think I know what you're saying. I think I articulated it poorly. If somebody wants me to take at face value that they are something that I don't perceive them to be, then we enter into the idea of, respect and trust and that sort of thing. And for the vast majority of people who I believe, and I think the vast majority of people who do that absolutely mean it, and they're being totally sincere, I have no problem with that. And I'll call them whatever they want to be called. And I do it in my videos, and I'll continue to do it because I don't have an issue with it. I think that if somebody's doing it for reasons that I don't feel are genuine or in earnest, I might not. but I can't think of any of those people off the top of my head right now.
I mean, so a big example that I see a lot of people point to is Jessica Yaniv. Are you aware of her?
Oh, I am.
Okay, yeah. So the problem here is a lot of people say that Jessica Yaniv, there's a pretty decent case to make that Jessica Yaniv is pretending to be a woman in order to get to children. That's usually the case that I've seen. The problem is this doesn't really matter when you're referring to her gender, right? Like people will dead name her, which is like when you call a trans person their old name, and they'll call her he and whatnot. And even if they don't think they're being transphobic, they're not just being transphobic, they're being incorrect, because the way that the scientific community considers gender, it is your identity. So if you're calling someone, most people also, it's probably harmful because most people know of Jessica Yaniv as Jessica Yaniv, not by her dead name. So if you start saying Jason Yaniv is a pedophile, they're gonna be like, oh, okay. And then
a dead name is what they used to go by before they changed their name, correct?
Yes. Yeah, when a trans person, most trans people change their name. So yeah, that would be their dead name, their old name. So the problem here is someone can lose respect, or you can consider them to be trans for nefarious reasons, and then that means that they kind of lose the ability, or in your mind you won't go calling them the gender they want to be if you consider their reasoning to be harmful. The problem is
potentially
even then it's not necessarily, you don't. So the way I see it, you don't call someone by their preferred pronouns because they want you to do it. It's the nice thing to do. You do it because
that is why I do it.
Correct. Well, no, it's correct. Their gender identity is correct.
No, that's why I do it. That's why I do it. It's correct or not. I'm not sure. I don't know. No, I don't know enough about it. But I mean, out of general respect for people.
Well, no, it's not just respect, because it's also correct. I don't call you Rags just because I respect you. I call you Rags because it's your name. If I started calling you Riggs,
right. I understand why you might do it. Right. I understand why you might do it, but I don't know enough about the correct issue, I guess. I'll do it. This is the reason I do it. I do it because when most people say, oh, I'm trans and I go by she, and I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And I don't even think about it. It's not even a thing that really pops into my head. I call Riley and Blair and all these people whatever they want to be called, because for me, it really is just as simple as, oh, that's what you want to be called. Sure, fine. No skin off my back or teeth or whatever the expression is. Sure, I'll go with it. Now, because I don't know enough about the biological technicalities and the correct this and that to even really know. It's not even something I really think about all that much. It really is for me just a matter of, oh, you want to be called this? Sure.
Okay, I mean, so the problem is, this is kind of what my view was before I knew a lot about how gender and sex worked. Really, I was just like, yeah, I mean, if someone wants to be called she, he, zer, zim, I mean, fuck it. As long as they're nice, I'll fucking call them whatever they want to be. I mean, mutual respect, dude. The problem is I didn't really understand a lot about how sex, gender, and transgenderism really worked back then. But as I've learned more about it, my view has changed a little bit away from that. I would probably recommend, I mean, if you want to do some research on it in a fun way, that's not like you have to go fucking read some like articles of the DMC5 or the fucking medical, it's basically the medical Bible. You can watch a channel. Have you ever heard of a channel called ContraPoints?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend watching a few of her videos. I know if you're kind of more into right-leaning areas on YouTube, she may have a bad stigma, but like seriously, you should give her a chance.
I digest a lot of left and right stuff. I just kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Depends on the issue, but for me, even knowing a technicality, I don't know how it would change what I actually do.
I mean, it does. So the problem is how can I kind of explain this? So let's say it's not so much a matter of respect or a matter of technicality. It's more a matter of whether or not you're right or wrong, So I guess I'll use Ben Shapiro as an example. I hate him. I'm friends with Fertanga, and he said you hate him too. So I mean, like, I don't think you'll get upset if I use this as an example. But
well, I don't. It depends. He's a real mixed bag for me.
Yeah. So Ben Shapiro is pretty well known because he does not like trans people very much, and the example he'll use is like, why would I call you?
Is it because he doesn't? Is it because he doesn't like them?
Yeah, no, like he doesn't like them. I'm pretty sure. I mean, like he may claim that's just because he thinks that they're incorrect and he has a different opinion, but it's very clear that he has some sort of emotional bias against trans people, and that motivates a lot of his decisions and a lot of his rhetoric, especially because he's literally spread misinformation on this before. Did you were you around like in these circles back when the whole Canada bill passed, where they were like, if you misgender somebody, you can get a fine? Are you aware of that?
Very lightly. I'm aware of it, but I don't know much of the details surrounding it. Okay,
so basically what happened was Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson were the #1 pushers of this idea. Basically, it was a lie. They said that basically what happened was Canada passed a bill which added transgender people onto the protected classes list, which means you can't fire somebody for being transgender. You can't fire somebody for being black. You can't say, no, you can't live here when you're like a landlord because someone's black, and you can't do it because they're transgender. Mind you, you have to be able to, like, landlords do it all the time, I imagine, say, no, I'm not going to let black people live here, but they won't say that. You have to be able to prove it. So they just added trans people to this list. They also made it so that if you are in, if you're like in the workplace and you're an employer, very much like you can't go up to your employee who's a woman and like start like grinding on her and saying like fucking misogynistic shit to her, you can get sued for that. They added trans people under that same protection where your employer can't come up to you and start like harassing you based on the fact that you're trans. And a lot of right-wingers on YouTube, even centrists, and especially Ben Shapiro, started spreading around the misinformation saying any random person on the street can misgender somebody and get fined, which literally just can't happen. It's just not true. It was literally fake news. It was a lie that Ben Shapiro and spread. And I have to assume either he was too stupid to know, or he had some sort of bias against trans people, and that's why he spread this lie.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if that's the case, I don't have any issue with the idea that as long as it applies to everybody, as long as you're going to say, okay, across the board, you can't fire people because their race or their gender or anything like that. It's like, I'm fine with that.
No, it affects white people too. Like when they added gender identity, I should say, not just transgender, which means if you're like a straight white dude and somebody says, I'm not going to hire you because you're a straight white dude, you can sue them. All
right, I'm definitely on board with that to a degree.
Yeah. I thought I should clarify that. Okay. So the reason why, okay, you can go on.
What's this about? Well, I was saying, because this happened, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was like 2 years ago, and recently it happened again in New York. It's been brought up a lot. Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson have spread this lie that like there's some sort of agenda to make it so that if you misgender transgender people, you can get fined or go to jail, when it's really not that. Like you have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law that the person was like misgendering them in a way to like specifically go out of their way to harass them. Like it'd be like if someone came up to you on the street and started calling you, I don't know, like fucking, I don't know, like some offensive shit that pissed you off, and you were like, bro, leave me the fuck alone. What are you doing? And you went to court. You would have to be able to prove that they were harassing you, except you would just be able to do it on the grounds.
What's this I hear about, like, human rights tribunals?
It's just sort of...
this Canadian law.
Oh, so is it in chat or something?
Yeah, someone mentioned it. Someone said you're wrong about it, that there's the human rights tribunal parts of it.
I mean, there's groups who come along that are like, yeah, more rights for these people, and you should, like, there are definitely people out there that want, like, mind you, none of these groups have like any actual power. They're just sort of like groups out there that are advocating for things that say that they should make it a crime to go to like literally misgender trans people, but they don't really get much.
I assume you're against that.
Yeah, no, I don't generally think that. I think if you misgender trans people, you're wrong and you're an asshole and you're going to lose my respect pretty quickly. But I don't know if you should go to jail for it unless you're doing it harassingly, obviously. In a lot of cases, it can be. So, I mean,
if you go out of your way to like go people, I mean, well, we already have laws on harassment. So if it would file into that, then it would just be the same. Okay.
Yeah, just making sure, because I look at these, mind you, these people like that I'm mentioning here are like a dime a billion. Like they are very rare, but there are, I imagine, people out there that are literally like, if you walk up to a random person on the street and you misgender them in your first interaction with them, you should be punished for it in some way. I don't agree with that. But if you know this person's told you their pronouns and you go out of your way to misgender them over and over again to like fuck with them, then you're in slippery territory. That's when you're going to get into a harassment situation. You know what I mean?
I know what you're coming from. Yeah, I can understand what you're coming from.
Okay.
I think maybe the issue is that someone in chat actually just kind of brought up what I was going to say. I guess it's that harassment, sort of as a concept, is very ambiguous. It's kind of a gray area, and I think that's part of it that I'm sort of wary about. What people consider to be harassment, what isn't harassment, whether the definitions we come up with are really good at sort of describing the concept of what it happens. I sort of wish that it was. I sort of wish it was more.
No, I would argue the definition of harassment, especially in terms of law, is pretty solid in place. If you are in some way seeking to affect somebody against their will continuously, that is considered harassment. So, for example, like I'm getting, like, right now, I'm literally on, like, there's a few white supremacist, like, neo-Nazi groups I've been put on their kill list. So, like, I would consider them probably harassing me. There's, like, people who are making, like, fucking accounts on like Kiwi farms and shit trying to dox me. I would consider that harassment. That would probably be like one end of it, and it can also extend to, like, if you're in the workplace and some dude's coming up and, like, groping you or some shit. That's also harassment.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about. I know what you're saying. I think what I'm trying to say is in terms of how people like harassment, especially as a concept. What is harassment? Is it the same for everybody? And the law's definition, does it really properly constitute what we in society would consider harassment? People are different, and therefore their ability to, maybe not their ability to, but their personal opinions on whether or not they've been harassed or not. Like you and I, we get death threats on the internet. We probably don't think anything about it. But, someone else, they get a death threat on the internet. Yeah, and they're like, oh, wow, this is a credible threat against my life. This is harassment. So in these two situations, it's different, but the law says it's this. And that's just pretty much what I'm talking about here. But yeah, obviously, when you grope people and stuff like that, yeah, obviously that's not something you should be able to do.
Really quick, I brought up the solid set in stone definition of harassment that the law goes by, at least in the U.S. A person guilty of harassment in the second degree a person is guilty of harassment in the second degree when, with intent to harass, annoy, or alarm another person, he or she strikes, shoves, kicks, or otherwise subjects such other person to physical contact or attempts to threaten to do the same. So that's in the first degree or in the second degree. So I assume in the third degree it would be a little less. It'd be a little more lenient. Hold on. Harassment is a form of employment.
Well, even then,
discrimination. Oh, sorry. What?
Well, even then, stuff like the intent to harass and now getting into people's heads, and can we prove that they were doing this with a particular intent, or whether or not it was out of ignorance, or whether or not they didn't think what they were doing was harassment, or whether they wouldn't be bothered by it, so they didn't even think to be apathetic in a certain sense. Sorry, empathetic to a certain sense. Mm-hmm. That's the part that's the part in particular, like why I brought up the whole thing of what you and I wouldn't even bat an eye at certain things now, especially with our internet presence. But other people might get like legitimately, oh my God, this is actually something I better file.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. Most people aren't public figures, right? I mean, most people don't generally get death threats over the internet, I feel like. And, if someone sends you a death threat over the internet, you kind of have to use your own judgment, and you can contact the police. They can do a little investigation into it. If they find that, hey, there's actual intent to not just harass, but to possibly hurt you, then yes, they're going to find that to be harassment, even a death threat. And that'll be the decision, but it's usually on a case-by-case basis. Harassment is one of those things where you kind of know it when you see it. Someone in a video game saying, like, the law will never consider, law will never, you can't call the police on somebody who says, fuck you, I'd kill you in a video game, Like, you kind of have to have a reasonable case.
What if I feel that... Well, finding out that reasonable case, do you think that's something that's quite so solid?
Okay. Because
I'm not sure.
Let me go a little bit more with this. So, in order to incriminate somebody with harassment, it's a long process. You have to go to court, you have to contact the police, it's going to cost money, so on and so on.
I'm sure you'd have to go through the whole process.
Yeah, you have to use some form of discretion before you even start with all of this. So you have to be able to prove it beyond some reasonable doubt before you're even going to get into all that. You got to hire a lawyer and shit. So it's not so much a matter of like anybody can consider anything harassment. Like, it's already pretty tough to get someone incriminated for harassment in the first place. So I guess what I'm saying here is it doesn't seem like it's that huge of an issue. Like whether or not harassment, the term or the definition of harassment is very vague or not, or too gray.
I'm not certain how big of an issue it is. It is something that sort of makes me raise my brow. especially with, maybe it goes back to what we talked about earlier with how people use the word, and do you mean it in a more colloquial sense, or do you mean it more in a legal sense? And, you know, what's the weight of each one, and does each person's, you know, personal sensitivity, essentially, is that going to play a role in how it's, you know, handled in a legal sense, and all sorts of stuff like that?
I mean, the way it would be handled in the legal sense has to do with how much
you can prove
of a case
and
they have,
evidence you've got.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, in court, you kind of have to prove it somewhat without beyond a reasonable doubt, right? You know, so it's not as simple as just, hey, I feel harassed by this person, and, you know, they have to deal with that. Like, you're not even going to bring that to court unless you think you have a good case, right?
Well, probably not.
Oh,
though I don't like the idea.
There's also anti-SLAPP laws that prevent people from putting forward so basically what they do is make it so that if you put forward some sort of case on someone harassing you, and it's proved that you did this even with harmful intentions, or that you didn't actually have a cause to do so, you can actually be punished for wrongfully accusing someone of harassment. I forgot to bring that up too.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. Same thing with like false rape allegations and stuff like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's already exists. So yeah, if you accuse someone falsely of rape, you can face legal consequences. Sorry, I guess we should probably bring it back around to the other. What was the original? Okay, so yeah, so
Ion Fury.
Yeah,
I don't think that. But, yeah, we just kind of been meandering all over the place. I kind of like it. It's nice. I don't really have discussions like this too much, so it's kind of nifty to just kind of talk with people, get their perspectives. I kind of like it. But I will say with the Ion Fury thing, man, I don't think that "oh-gay" on a soap bottle is a hateful joke against gays. I don't see the connection. I don't buy it.
So under most circumstances, I would consider it to be like very harmless. It's just sort of with the context. That's when I'm like, you know, the devs in the Discord are saying some really transphobic and homophobic shit. It's like, I mean, it depends on the kind of message.
What homophobic stuff?
They were saying for starters, they were saying that transitioning is butchering your body, which it's not. Like, you transition. So there is also, I forgot to bring this up as well, there exists a mental condition called gender dysphoria, which is diagnosable by medical professionals, and the cure to this infliction, I guess you could call it, is to transition physically. Like, medical professionals prescribe you hormones. They will advise surgeries. Everything that has to do with transitioning when you're a transgender person, if that's what you choose to do, is done under the watchful eye and with the consent of and by medical professionals who know way better than like you or I. So I just think that whenever you see somebody saying something like, yeah, transitioning, it's butchering your body, that's pretty transphobic.
I don't know, because the only quote that I have here about that is, yes, but mutilating a perfectly healthy body while you have depression and other big mental issues won't cause suicides. I think that's
not butchering. Sorry, mutilation. Yeah. So if you want to,
I don't think that's necessarily. Well, I don't think that's necessarily an unreasonable thing for somebody to think. I don't think that's transphobic.
Well, no, so it is. It's also wrong as well. So what he's referencing here is that transgender people tend to have a really high suicide rate, and I guess he's equating transitioning, it seems like, to mutilating your body. So for starters, it's not mutilation. I mean, to word it like that is already pretty fucking scuffed to begin with. But also the idea that
circumcision is mutilation.
Yeah, probably. I'm not circumcised, so I don't know. The problem is that it's done without the consent of the baby. That's why I consider it mutilation. I mean, you could consider a tattoo mutilation with that same logic.
Sure, I gotcha. Okay, yeah, I gotcha. I'm just trying to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, so not only is transitioning done with the consent of a medical professional, but obviously the consent of the person undergoing the procedure. And oftentimes it's, the person who comes to the doctor, being like, I want to transition. The medical professional is like, yeah, okay. Sorry, what was I going to say? Yeah. So the idea that it's mutilation, pretty fucked up to begin with. It'd be like calling and then on top of that, saying that it's not going to help when it does. So the scientific community has recognized transgender people officially since about the 50s. It's been about 60 years. And so we've experimented, the scientific community, we've experimented on the state of gender dysphoria for a long time. We've tried a lot of solutions. We've tried therapy. We've tried shock. We've tried essentially what they did with gay conversion therapy. We've tried everything. After 60 years of experimentation... Oh, sorry, what?
Sorry, we just got a 5-minute warning, so we might run out of time quick. Just letting you know, giving you a reminder here.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna go super fucking bench here.
Fast. Go.
Okay. So the way that the scientific community has come to the conclusion that transitioning is the best way to cure gender dysphoria, and so the idea that they were writing that it's mutilating your body and it's going to make things worse is pretty fucking transphobic. It's anti-science, transphobic. That's right there.
I've heard that the suicide rate remains about the same even after transitioning. That's what I've heard. Is that true?
So. I don't believe so. What I do know is that transgender people generally have a higher suicide rate or higher rate to attempt suicide, or a higher attempted suicide rate before transitioning. But I believe it's lower attempted in general afterwards. I don't know about the overall successful suicide rate before and after. I don't think that's actually true. It seems pretty unlikely. I mean, I can bring up the stats for you if you want, but we don't have much time.
No.
Do you want me to do it?
I'll look up later. How does this relate to homophobia?
Okay, so that is transphobic. That's the problem. When you say, it would be like saying that the procedure to like chemotherapy and radiation are barbaric, and that you shouldn't, and that it's not going to help you when you have cancer. It's just wrong, scientifically incorrect, and it's transphobic because you're insisting that they're mutilating themselves. Sorry, what?
Hold up. So transphobic, I guess. Do you think that transphobia has intent implied behind it? Like even if you're not intending to be transphobic, it's still transphobic.
Yeah, you can be racist. You can be transphobic without really the intent. Yeah.
All right, I got you. Just asking.
I don't think they were being malicious. I think they're just stupid and didn't know better.
Exactly. Okay. That's good. That's just kind of what I was going for. All right. I don't think they're being malicious either.
Yeah, I don't think they should be fired or anything over it. I mean, they went through like a sensitivity training, so I imagine they probably know what I've told you now. And so.
$1,000 to the the Trevor Foundation and stuff like that, and the big reset era stuff that leaked all this stuff. They were calling for the guys to be fired, which I don't like at all. And I think what's ironic is that they were highlighting a Discord message that one of the devs says that some of these SJWs are nuts and they try to dox people and get them fired, and that was clipped by the person who then said these people should be fired. I think it's a little interesting that they did that. But talking about just the bottle itself. Do you actually think that "okay" on the bottle is like a harmful homophobic joke?
Well, that's the thing. It like on its own, probably not. If this whole controversy never happened and it was just there, probably wouldn't cause any harm. I wouldn't really care about it. My main issue is that when you consider the context, it kind of sends a message, especially after the controversies happen and they've decided to roll back their decision and not remove it. I was reading the newer reviews, the ones that are positive, because they stopped review bombing the game after they decided to roll back their decision. There were a lot of people saying like, haha, I'm so glad they didn't decide to remove this. And then a bunch of homophobic shit, like fuck gay people and all that. And it's like, it did empower a lot of homophobes, which is something that's kind of unfortunate.
I'm sure there are some percentage of people in any group, and some of them will say hateful gay things on the internet. Yeah, sure. But I don't see. What did they say?
Wait.
What did they? No. Yeah. What?
They said that they weren't going to bend the knee to the censorship mob and they weren't going to remove it. That was what the devs said. That was their announcement. They rolled back their decision. They were going to keep it in the game. They did remove the other thing, the thing. Yeah. And so basically,
they did.
They removed that because that was like you had to hack to see it, and it wasn't like a part of the game.
Well, it was the person who put it in was a non-native English speaker, and he didn't know that it had connotations in this West and stuff. So,
I don't think I don't know if I would go with that. I mean, like that may be the case, but from what I've read, I'm pretty sure if the person knows English, then they know the connotation.
Maybe.
So,
I don't know.
I'm
totally ready to believe him that he wasn't trying to be offensive or anything.
I probably think he was. I think that's why he put it like in a place that you couldn't find it. Let's be honest here. It was definitely intentional. That's the problem. When you know the context, when you know what a lot of the mindset was of a lot of the other people on the team, and then you consider that, and then the gay thing, it seems like it's more connected.
You'd have to have the mindset of the person who put it in, why they did it, and I don't think that. I don't think it's good to just jump on it and say, yeah, I can assess his intent and judge that he was trying to do it to be harmful. I definitely wouldn't go that far.
I mean, you have like a significant amount of evidence to support the idea that maybe the person who did that was a little homophobic. I mean, you see the transphobia from some of the team. They hid a
little homophobic. Is that enough to jump and say, yeah, they were doing it to be homophobic? Because maybe they were a little homophobic, even though I don't know the person who said it, because the dev team's obviously a lot of people on the dev team, however many people there were, is the same dev who said this, the same dev who said that other thing? Are they a hive mind?
Let me revise what I said. I'm going to say probably beyond a reasonable doubt, I would probably say that the dev who did that was homophobic. They hid it in a place where you had to hack to see it. It's a homophobic slur, and they apologized for it afterwards. It's pretty obvious what they did. And then they decided to keep, and then they had the "oh gay" thing into. I'm not saying they should be fired or anything. All I'm saying is it's extremely likely the person that did it was probably pretty homophobic and did it with the intent of, hiding their little, homophobic Easter egg in there.
How is it? But it's not hiding. It's on every shampoo bottle in the thing. It's actually kind of prominent.
I'm not talking about the "oh gay" thing. I'm talking about the fag bag thing. That was hidden. You had to hack to see it. It was hidden. If it wasn't a big deal, I don't know why they wouldn't have just had it spray painted on a wall or something, as some sort of background decoration. They hid it. You had to hack to see it.
It depends on what devs are doing, what part of the work. I mean, I don't know. I don't have enough information to make that judgment.
From what I read, the dev did it without anyone else's permission. They did it hiding it. They attempted to hide it for a reason. You don't hide something like that if you don't want people to see it, or that you're not trying to be sneaky. You know what I mean? You don't hide something unless you know you're doing something wrong.
Not necessarily at all. I don't agree with that. I see where you're coming from, but I don't agree. I need more information as to who put it in, why they did, and I'm not going to jump to homophobia.
I mean, I guess when I say okay, I guess we can wrap it up.
Do you want to do some closing thoughts real quick, and then we can go ahead and wrap it up? Maybe there's something we can touch on another time. So,
I'll just say that it's been fun talking to you, Rags. I mean, if you want to add me on Discord, we can probably talk more later. If you want, you can join me and Fertanga's podcast. We actually have a podcast we just started, so that's up to you. Okay. But yeah, I mean, generally, I think my main problem is I see a lot of pretty some reactionary politics in some of your newer videos, and it seems like talking to you here. Sorry, what do you say?
When you say reactionary, what do you mean?
Oh, reactionary. Here, I can give you the actual word for a definition, because a lot of people use the wrong definition.
That's right. Just tell me what you mean.
It means to a person who's opposing political or social liberalization or progress in some form. So I see a lot of the time you'll be anti-feminist or stuff, keep feminism out of video games and whatnot. A lot of your politics are pretty reactionary, and that's kind of, for me, that's upsetting as a leftist, because I really enjoyed a lot of your earlier content. Especially around the time when you did your, I think one of my favorite videos of yours was your Witcher 3 review. But I don't know. It just it just seems upsetting because it just seems upsetting because I've seen you say things in your videos that are factually wrong in your more political ones, or that are factually wrong. And I used to see you as somebody who was almost always right with your. The two gender thing. Also, the Disney deleting reviews, Rotten Tomatoes and Disney and YouTube deleting reviews and whatnot, and videos having to do with Brie Larson when it came to Captain Marvel. You kind of took you warped that quite a bit. I don't know if that was intentional or what. But I don't know. I would like to talk with you more about this, in a different format, maybe, if you would be down for it.
Maybe. I was going by the information that I had, and I thought I found it to be pretty accurate based on what I'd seen. But all right, yeah, sure, you bet.
All right.
But ultimately, I guess closing thing for me, I am glad to come on. Always happy to have a chit chat. Definitely a lot of stuff to think about. Some interesting ideas thrown around. I'm not would you consider me transphobic?
I mean, so there's actually a philosophy tube video I think you should watch that would describe my opinion. I would consider you being your dad is what I would call it. It's like back in the day, you're sitting at the dinner table with your dad and he's like, hey, I got no problem with gay people so long as they don't do it around me. It's not expressly homophobic, but it's not really accepting. So I don't think you're necessarily transphobic, but I don't know. Maybe you need to learn more about it. We can watch some ContraPoints videos and I think you'll be good. Okay. I don't think you're malicious or anything, but maybe a little under misled or misunderstanding in some cases. We can talk more about it though.
Maybe. In any case, happy to come on. happy to have a chat. Kind-hearted transphobe that I am. So if you ever want to have me up.
Before you leave, can you say trans rights?
Huh? Oh, no. I'm against all trans rights and all minority rights, and I hate women, and I think that we should destroy the planet. Dump sludge into the rivers. And blow up the moon.
But can you say trans rights though before you leave? Unironically, no memes. Can you say trans rights?
Trans rights. There you go. Now you can clip it.
I did it. Yeah.
Now
People
you
will
can do
clip that. All right.
Because
I appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, because I'm infamous for being against people having human rights.
Well, no, it's just sort of a meme. Every time I debate somebody, I ask them to say trans rights. It's just sort of like a meme in lefty communities.
Oh, I don't know about the lefty community memes.
Yeah, it's not like I'm not trying to like clip you out of context and like it's not supposed to be like a gotcha or anything. It's just sort of like my chat started spamming like smile faces whenever you said it. Like that's sort of how it works.
I'm totally down with the transes having the rightses.
Hell yeah. All right. I mean, you can ask for Tanga for my Discord info if you want to talk to me again. Yeah, I mean, it's been nice talking to you, dude. I'm excited to bread pill you some more. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before you go?
Nah. Gosh, I think we just kind of covered it. We just been meandering. I thought we were just going to talk about a video game, but man, we went all over the world.
Yeah, that's how my debates usually tend to go. Yeah, I debate people. We debate every topic that we kind of come across. It's like a tree. You know, you have the main topic, and then you're just going to branch off from there.
There are certainly some things that I know more about than others. So who knows what I'll know tomorrow.
Alrighty. Well, it's been nice talking to you. Is there anything else you guys want us to do before we wrap up?
Just shill your channels, and we will shill our shit, and we will end it.
Alrighty. You can do yours first, Rags.
My channel is Rags, and I say bad things, and I need to be banned.
My name is Pig Puncher, and I do leftism, and I promote trans rights and shit like that. You guys know who I am. I'm the biggest YouTuber on the platform. I'm PewDiePie. I'm coming for you. I'm coming. But yeah, that's basically it. You can follow my new Twitter because Twitter decided to ban me. So, alrighty.
Twitter ban club.
Twitter ban club. Hell yeah. Is that everything?
That's pretty much it.
Alrighty, well,
thank you guys for coming on. That was actually it veered off, but it was actually a good conversation. So
yeah, it was a good chat.
I was hoping for it to get spicier, but Rags is just Rags. You're a pretty reasonable person. That's why I like your videos before, and I think you can be bread pilled. I think you'll be a leftist, and you'll be fighting against corporatism even more so by a year from now.
I'm not. I don't really see myself as a rightist, and I'm no friend of corporations anyway. So that's not
halfway there, my friend.
Oh, I think the rest is a pretty big jump, but I'm down with it. I'm not a crazy person either way. I'm one of those filthy centrists that you hear so much about, shooting up schools and whatnot. That's us. That's me.
Alrighty. Well, I'm a yeet out. Okay. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Toodles.
Bran, if you want to go ahead and shill us out, we will end this shit.
Yeah, fuck yeah. As always, so thank you to our first set of debaters for coming on the show. All their links to their channels, pertinent information is linked down below. If you're new, subscribe. I guess if this is kind of your thing. Leave some of these. And yeah, like I say, all the pertinent information is down below. If you want to support us, the Patreon's linked down below. If you're interested in some of our very interesting merch, that's linked down below. So yeah, check us out. There's many ways to support us. If you check out the links, you'll see what I mean. And I think we're on damn near every social media site that's at least somewhat active. So check those links out as well. So yeah, I guess that concludes. We finally got through it, guys. So whatever Billy was doing to fuck shit up, Bull defeated him. Because
thanks, buddy.
After a rocky start, it was a smooth ride afterwards.
Yeah. So Yeah, so Pepita Pigs, come back because you got to give us a like because we're going to play an outro. And everybody, it's 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and end this shit. So tomorrow we have that. We have the Let's Riff YouTube special with Nate. He's going to be walking around New York Comic Con, and that's going to be fun. So let's just go ahead and end this shit. Like right here.
What did it taste like?
Saltiness, actually.
I'm so glad I called.
This is why you should go to Patreon.